Jason's getting food. And I don't want it to be about like making fun of the guy, and more about, addressing the ideas. As we all know, I love you, brother Ben. You will always be my
Bernie
brother.
don't even know him to make fun of him. Like we're
Yeah,
gonna talk
I don't
about
even
more
know who you're
interesting
talking
shit.
about.
Bernie's
And I'm
in
about debating science and theory, not just randomly bashing people.
Yeah.
I'm done with that, dude.
And see, I've got a little bit of a difference of opinion with you, Ben, on I believe that it's possibility that there was a root prior advanced civilization like Atlantis or Lemuria, something like that. Bye, nice to meet you, Rose.
Bye, nice to meet you too. Bye-bye.
Hey, Bernie, fuck. I forgot you two had never met. Damn it.
All good. All good.
Shit. I was like, you two need to. I've been trying to get you two to meet for like freaking months. Like, I have a hard enough time talking to you.
Intuitively initiated it, but we'll get to know each other better another time.
Yes, that's Rose from Crow.
Okay, Rose from Crow. Cool, nice.
Yeah, you bet. So no, go ahead and lay it out there, Bernie.
So, like, I believe essentially that there was this golden age of a past higher civilization, which in the Bible they refer to as the Tower of Babel moment, and that there was this one language beforehand that the world essentially spoke, and that it could have potentially been telepathy instead of a written language, and that would explain why there is not a written universal global language from before that. And then after the fall of this worldwide civilization, after catastrophe that happened that wiped it out, and the descendants back into the Stone Age and the fall of everything, that then it fragmented, and all of these different languages and groups started developing all on their own because they were no longer connected to each other and to whatever this higher source consciousness or whatever it was is. But
right.
Adversely,
and the laugh was at the telepathy.
Oh yeah,
word stumble.
I got it.
Yeah. Not at your theory.
Yeah, it's all good, right? But that's the thing. It's just an idea. It's a theory. And if you're doing real research in science and just genuine, authentic research and discovery truth, you can't be hung up and stuck on any one idea. Like, you laugh at it and it's like, it is pretty funny and outrageous in certain ways. And if it's proven wrong, I ain't stuck on it because it's just an idea, right? And it's like, it's whatever the evidence actually supports, and that anyone who can't handle these opposing ideas, opposing views, and especially opposing evidence and tries to shut it down, well, you ain't no truther, you ain't a researcher. All you are is a snowflake that melts at the very first opposition you face. And
exactly. I got called. I get like, the first like 10 interviews I was on, I got called the Antichrist and everything else like 50 times. Like, I mean, if you can't take some heat, don't go out in public and say things. Like,
holy exactly. It's exactly it. And like, it's just so ridiculous, especially in this community today. How many of these people claim to be these truthers, giving you the only truth, their truth, and then will block you when you just ask a simple question, just one question. Be like, hey, can you provide a little evidence? And you get blocked. And it's like, oh, okay, cool story, bro.
Yeah, dude. Actually, what the hell's his name? Joshua, the guy that, have you ever heard of the Stonewall around Texas, Stonewall, Texas?
Yeah. The buried stone wall.
So this guy, super cool, right? And this guy was doing a bunch of study on it, Joshua something Reeves, and there was I can't find it anymore, but I used to be able to find, there was a mortar mix, and this mortar mix was a bunch of different crystals mixed together. Super, super interesting. And you know the other stories, like where the excavator made the whole wall just shake and they had to drag it off with a chain and things like that. So I'm looking at this mortar mix, and I have a question, and I'm just like, well, what tourmaline was one of the things in the mix? And I'm like, super interesting. So I said, what kind of tourmaline? And dude lost his shit on me. And all I was asking was, because I wanted to know the different colors in tourmaline. For everybody that doesn't know, Bernie knows, is just that actually the tourmaline itself is clear. And then there's an inclusion. There's another thing saturating inside the tourmaline that's giving
saturate and give it the different colors.
Yeah. Yes. So depending on what color tourmaline would tell me also micro what minerals were in it, because that could make a difference. Like maybe you need it to be pink tourmaline. Black tourmaline won't work because you need that just tiny little bit of the so I was just asking. Dude lost his shit on me.
Curious, inspired by their research, like you're genuinely curious about what's going on with it, and then they legitimately block you, and it's like, WTF? It's happened to me many times. So like you crack a joke and you're blocked, and it's like, what? Like,
yes.
And like I had to literally on my channel, I've had to make everybody moderators blue wrenches so they can't delete each other because they constantly have opposing views. So then they decide that they have to block the other person, and it's like, no,
I will give you all power suits.
Super chat there. Dabs up, bro. Dabbing on some blueberry haze ice, water hash, and sipping on blueberry muffin style tart ale. Nice.
Oh, did you take and ferment the cannabis there, brother? The super chat fella. Did you ferment some of your cannabis? Did you like take your trim and then turn around and make a ferment out of that? I had a really awesome ferment with some mushrooms and some cannabis going, and my apprentice broke the carboy. He's naughty.
Naughty.
Yeah. It smelled horrible, though.
Okay.
Horrible.
He said that's an awesome idea.
I thought maybe that's what you were sipping on. Maybe that's what you were sipping on. Good stuff, though. But so now with this then singular civilization, what do you think that we somehow lost the ability of telepathy, and this is what was the unifying the civilization? Then is that what you're saying?
Well, that in this former golden age, that the consciousness would have been on this higher level. Yeah, exactly. It's in a lot of the different stories, myths, and legends, and creation myths and stuff like that, and this grand cycle and whatnot. So I kind of believe that. But then there's also the evidence of all the giants that could have been of this past civilization, and could have been the builders, and could have been what seeded us. Who really knows? Nobody knows. That's the thing, right? So it's like,
right.
It's all just speculation. It's not a belief that I hold true, and that I see many different theories as plausible and possible, right? It's just an
100%,
idea, right?
100%. We can't. None of us can go back and prove any of this. It's just, it just comes down to, is your theory have a lot of logic to it? That's the best you're going to get. Does it seem logically sound? You're never going to actually prove it. And having a sense of humor, that's just a must. Like our friend, and I've got to introduce you to Jeffrey Drum. He's doing this work on the pyramids as chemical refineries. Just fantastic work. But like that guy, I met him in person, and he's a 32nd degree Mason. And I asked him how many times he's jacked George Bush off in a closet. And he looked at me and said, "What?" And I said, "That's why you're not a 33rd. And then he just laughed.
Right?
You know, like he didn't shit. He didn't get all mad at me. He just laughed.
Exactly. Right? There's people that can handle life and reality in the world, and then there's those that just melt away at any sort of opposition or opposing views. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. I've got Christian friends, and I speak out against Christianity regularly, you know, and they speak out, and then you go on their things and they're talking about pagans, like, you know, and how bad pagans are. We're still friends because at the end of the day, all that stuff, even though it is real and it is the way you carry yourself, where I live and my neighbors and my family, that's a different thing. And my family, my neighbors can have differing views. I don't have just heathen friends. I don't even really have that many heathen friends. Like, it's my thing. Sure, I believe it. I live by it. But am I going to go fight with you over it because you believe in the freaking flying spaghetti monster or whatever the fuck? No, don't care. That's your problem. You know?
Yeah, right. And everybody's entitled to their own beliefs. And it's like, whatever you believe, I respect your beliefs, but you got to respect ours as well. You know, that's just being human and an equal amongst us, you know? Like, it's just blows my mind, the amount of banning and blocking and snapping and name calling, and just they're hypocrites of the system they claim to be opposing and to, you know, be exposing.
I think it's honestly, and you've seen it jack up over the last couple of years because of the COVID. It's people don't remember how to be with people. Like, most of the time, I still like, and a ton of people have met me now. A ton of people have been to my house. They've spent time with me. Jonah, right there, that you're posting, that Jay, that's Jonah. She met me at Flattoberfest. Everybody knows me. I'm the same all the time. I'm not trying to be something different. I'm just me. And I Ben and talk about the box saga. So here's Rose. I forgot to introduce you to. Rose is in the chat. Rose, this is Bernie. Bernie does amazing alchemy experiments and has been doing a lot of electrolysis experiments, breaking down different metals into monoatomics. Absolutely awesome. She was on for a minute. That's Rose from Crow.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, Bernie's doing work.
Thank you. Right, and that's what it's about. I got a series called Real Science that I do with Andreas Sertis, and we're doing real science in the labs, like testing it. You know, it's not speculation. It's not made up dogma or stuff we're stuck on. It's like, you put forward an idea, you test it, the results come back. You're either accurate or you're not accurate. You move forward to the next.
Yeah. Exactly. Or you do it another 23,000 times and every time go, now, why the fuck did it go that way this time?
Definition of insanity, right? Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result.
The worst part is that as scientists, we do, because like then all of a sudden you start realizing you didn't really understand all the variables. Like, there's variables in the wider world that affect your experiments, just like Bernie
amount of mass, right? Littlest things, like it just 1 degree temperature change and your variable's completely different, and you can have absolutely different results.
100%. Or like, say Bernie only one of the things that he's found is that when he does his monoatomic silver on a full moon, he gets a substantial amount more production. Well, let's say Bernie didn't realize it was a full moon and did that, and then did another subsequent 6 experiments and never got the same production, never taking into account that the full moon somehow made silver production that much greater. Like, these are all weird little variables that you
Literally,
may or
though,
may
that
not
actually
notice.
happened to me. Where like the first several times, it's like some days it would work amazing, and it happened to be on the full moon, but I didn't pay attention to that. And some days it wouldn't work at all, and I'd be like, "What the WF? Why isn't it working?" And it was when the moon was waxing and waning. But it took me running the experiment instead of for just a couple days or a couple hours for a full month. And during that month for a supermoon to happen, and on that supermoon it just exploded and filled the entire container, the amount that it made, for me to actually make the correlation between the two and be like, oh, that's why the ancient alchemists called the moon silver, is because literally the element of silver's production rate of decay into monoatomics on the anode side is directly correlated to the phase of the moon. And it's, yeah, like, it's science. That is real science.
And well, and then it takes a lot of observation. This is like why guys like Schauberger, where he's figuring out things like the way water moves and discovering the anomaly point of water and things. This was all from observation. And a lot of those observations, you didn't even realize that was a thing before that was something that affected it, that there was a weird change that happens right there. And to this day, because we don't have really a firm grasp of the plane that we live on at all, we are still figuring that out. We're still just like, have you ever heard anybody else say that you can break down more monoatomic silver during the full moon ever? So this is now, the moon. Well, if the moon makes it do something, what about Jupiter? What about the metal tied to Jupiter? And all of a sudden Jupiter comes into prominence.
The gold
what happens
sun.
there? 100%. Yeah. That's
right?
that's go ahead.
So also in regards to that, to test my theory, and like, it's scary testing your theory live on live stream, where it's like, oh, I can embarrass myself and make myself look like an idiot, but that's real science. And I went on to the Alien Scientist channel during one of the last full lunar eclipses, and I ran the monoatomic experiment the night before when it was getting close to a full moon, and it made a whole bunch. Then I set it up, and during the actual eclipse, right before the eclipse, I started it on camera. It started producing a bunch. Then the eclipse started. It stopped producing for the entire eclipse, and it's all caught on camera and on the stream. You can go over to the Alien Scientist channel and check it out. And it was producing absolutely nothing.
Please post that in my chat also, Bernie. Please, are you
on
able to
my
do
cell
that?
phone, so I'll have to do that or afterwards for you. I'll put it in the links or something. But yeah, and then
put it in the links,
I did
please,
a
Bernie.
stream on my channel right after that stream, later the night when the eclipse was over, and once again it started producing a whole bunch more in it, where a couple hours ago it was producing nothing, and all I did was switch the electricity back on, didn't touch anything else, right? It's like yeah, and it's like people call you crazy. Oh, the moon affecting stuff, but it's like, no, it moves the tides, it moves water, it dictates a woman's cycle. And you go into any hospital, the ER will tell you that it's exponentially busier on the night of a full moon. There's all these different effects that we're having, and hey, maybe
I can't fucking sleep for the life of me. I can't sleep for nothing. I honestly don't like full moons particularly, because I still got to get up in the morning, and I get up. God damn it!
So Hinterlanders, how dangerous it is working with metals. If they oxidize and turn blue and go diatomic, then they are extremely poisonous and will very quickly accumulate, dissolve through your skin, even because they're at that small single or double atom diatomic state, the powder, and absorb in and will accumulate as heavy metal poisoning very quickly in their oxidized diatomic state. But as long as you're getting it in the pure monoatomic white single atom state, then it is beneficial for you not poisonous. But if you don't know what you're doing, you don't have the right equipment, 100% it is extremely dangerous to work with, and you don't know what you're doing, you're probably gonna harm yourself with it. So it's something to be very careful and take extreme safety measures with.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You need to take extreme safety measures with it. And this is why it's concerned me. And I've recommended so many people to go over to Bernie's channel to watch him making monoatomic silver rather than a lot of these other videos where they're just ionizing some silver into water.
Yeah. And lots of the time it's turning blue, which is oxidized, which is diatomic and poisonous. They're like, oh, you need the blue silver, the blue gold. It's like, no, that's corrupted, oxidized, poisonous metals now. And Pants on the Ground has a good point. Lead corrosion is extremely dangerous. And yeah, I only once ever used a little bit of lead wire in one of my electrolysis reactions. And you could feel the energy just drain you, like suck the energy, the life force out of you, just getting within a few meters of the electrolysis reaction, even after it was shut off for a day. And it's like it almost killed me and my dog just being in the garage for a couple hours around the reaction while it was running. And I, after that, threw it all out in a safe manner and disposed of it safely, but have never worked with it since. And it's just like you connect that any lead material to the oxidized state or that monoatomic state, it's not even through the air. It just, the energetic field is so heavy and strong, it just sucks the life right out of you. It's crazy.
Well, when you look at lead, hold on, I'm gonna pop open the screen share real quick. Window share. So this is the uranium decay chain here. Let's find one that's kind of decently legible. All right. So when you look then at some point when you're looking at this, and actually Bernie and I have talked a little bit about this before, and we all recognize these names that are the more active. So what they're doing is throwing off ionic energy. They can't even hold it at all. And so what makes element an element is how many protons it has. And so as it keeps chucking these off, it starts degrading into other metals. And at some point down here, and it's right around bismuth, it becomes stable. Now, lead on the flip side wants to grab ions. So this is the opposite side basically to uranium, where this is now actually short, and it really badly wants to pull in and upgrade. And you can do that, which is really just transmutation. Once you start looking at decay chains like this and whatnot, you start realizing that they can take radium and they can make it into uranium. They can mix it with thorium, and thorium's going to pull in neutrons. Radium's going to pull in other, stack them on top of the radium, and it's just going to enrich it. This is all there we go. So this is all there is to transmutation and whatnot. And when you're looking at lead, what Bernie's saying right there, super interesting how it had that reaction where lead wants to grab that ion side. It's lacking it. It's like, gimme. And he's like, it was sucking the soul out of me. Like, that's super fascinating.
Like, and not just me, my dog at the time too almost killed him that day. And like, he had been suffering a nose tumor, and like he almost died that day, and like they'd given him only like a couple months to live, and it was like 3 or 4 months at that point. But after that, like, he almost died that night. And then he lived for another 1.5 years afterwards, because I was giving him the colloidal silver water. but it's the fact that
Nice.
it's just so poisonous. And yeah, I drink myself colloidal silver, gold, zinc, copper waters, but it has to be from monoatomic white material out of all of those metals, not blue diatomic. You will poison yourself if it oxidizes or hydroxidizes or any other compound other than the pure white monoatomic single atom powder. And sorry to
Not
cut
great
things
stuff.
short, Ben. I'm on my phone outside my mom's house and freezing my hand off because I'm in Canada and it's still kind of cold. So I've got to go, but I will be listening and I will still leave them running on my channels because I hijacked your stream because, well, you're awesome education and love you, brother. We're
Love you,
going into
Bernie.
electroculture. If you're going into
Yes.
electroculture and you're live for a little bit, I will rejoin from my home in like 20 minutes if you're still up and going.
Well, let's plan on
But,
that then, Bernie.
all
We
right
will.
then.
We
I can
will. I'll start booting
continue.
some things up. I've been on for an hour and 18. So let's do let's try and get the last half hour into electroculture, and I'll take a little break right now.
Okay. So I will see you in a bit then.
Yeah, I'm gonna throw on some music and go potty, old man potty. See you shortly.
Okay. But the music is not going to get the copyright strikes because we're on the YouTubes.
I will
Yes or no?
do Freddie Badger. I will do Freddie Badger.
Perfect. We all love Freddie Badger.
Once I stood at the foot of a great high mountain that I wanted so much to climb. And on top of this mountain was a beautiful fountain, and beside it the tree of life. I fell down on my knees at the foot of this mountain, cried out, Odin, what must I do? I want to climb up and see, want to learn from this tree that grows so clear in my view. From the top of this mountain, saying, child, these are my runes. Just start with Fehu and climb on upward between the etheric and rude. Taking Odin's advice, and the higher I got, the harder I climbed. Upwards, and the journey never ends, but through symbiosis I farm and live free, climbing higher each day by the alchemist way. So friend, if you're willing, climb this mountain with me. Oh, the cuckoo, she's a pretty bird. She warbles as she flies. She never hollers cuckoo till 4th day July. Gonna build me a log cabin on a mountain so high, so I can see Willie as he goes on by. I play cards in England and I play cards in Spain. I'll bet you $10 I'll beat you this game. My wagon, well green, and my whip's in my hand. Step aside, little woman, my horses won't stand. Jack and Jack and I've known you from old. You robbed my poor pockets of my silver and my gold. Oh, the cuckoo, she's a pretty bird. She warbles as she flies. She'll cause you no trouble, and she'll tell you no lies.
Yes, that is normally my or normally I have a different break music and I end up going to Rockfin. We're gonna go ahead and let it roll. I'd like Bernie's electroculture information to get out there and our little chat about that. So I think that's important stuff to talk. But my middle show music is by Danheim. And even though I have specific permission, written permission from Danheim to use their music. YouTube still dings me on it. So Bernie asked that I didn't use that. So Freddie Badger, I will ask Freddie Badger to make a few more songs for other incidences like that. And the cat would like to show you its ass. Because that's just what cats do. Hi, pretty girl. So Joan asked, I saw a lady at the grocery store that was literally bluish like a Smurf. Would this be from too much ingested silver? Now, this is what Bernie was talking about real heavily, where if you have your silver dioxide and things where you're getting this blue element to it, then this is absolutely going to start poisoning you because this isn't the monoatomic element. The monoatomic element's not able to bind to things the same way, where this will bind to you and start poisoning you. And depending on which metal you use to try and make your mixture, that could get real bad. Now, a lot of people, what they're doing is they're making orme, which is orbitally rearranged monoatomic elements. So what they're doing then is they're just taking salt water from different places that contain these trace minerals, running them through an electrolysis process, breaking them down, and then giving it back. So when they call it, and a lot of times you'll see them call that, they'll sell it as monoatomic silver, or I know, baby, monoatomic silver or monoatomic gold. It's not, and they don't really know how much of it's in there. It's just whatever was in the water, and there's going to be a mixture of a bunch of different things, which doesn't necessarily make it bad. It's just not what they're selling it as. Like when Bernie makes his monoatomic gold and monoatomic silver, he's actually taking a bar of gold and a bar of silver and breaking it down. And as you're watching it break down, you notice that it doesn't produce a whole lot compared to what he's losing on the bar, because some of it is breaking down into different allotropes. Okay, Master Mason time. Yeah, the cat's ass is the bee's knees. They make sure that they show that thing off as often as possible, don't they? All right. Well, let's go ahead and get started on looking at electroculture. Present. Share screen. Okay. Obviously one-handing this. And all right. So we'll just start out with whatever's at the top here. Take a quick glance. Electroculture gardening is cutting edge. It's been around for a very long time, guys. Fascinating method of cultivation that makes use of electrical currents to promote plant development and boost output. While being relatively new, not at all, and little recognized, there's patents that are hundreds of years old. This method has recently become more well-liked among gardeners and academics. The idea behind electroculture gardening is that electrical currents in fields can be beneficial to plants. Electrical stimuli have an impact on plants in a variety of ways because they are sensitive to them. For instance, research has demonstrated that electrical currents can promote plant growth, raise seed germination rates, improve nutrient uptake and effectiveness. These principles are used in electroculture gardening to establish the best conditions for plant development. One of the main advantages of electroculture gardening is that it can increase plant yields and improve quality. blah, blah. Additionally, gardening can improve nutritional value of crops by enhancing the uptake of nutrients and minerals in the soil. So because of that, you don't need as much fertilizer. By improving nutrient, enhancing plant growth, help reduce the amount of fertilizer, blah, blah. So aside from not requiring substantial training or specific equipment, electroculture gardening is rather simple to apply. All you need to get started with electroculture gardening is a few straightforward tools and materials, as well as the fundamental understanding of electrical principles. You can use these to build a setup that is customized to unique requirements of your plants and the gardening environment. So DC, this entails applying a little amount of DC current, electricity, directly to the plant or soil. Electrodes or cables are buried in the soil or coiled around the plant to apply the current, which is commonly generated by a battery or low voltage power system. Alternating current, AC stimulation. This requires exposing the soil or the plant to a weak AC electrical field in order to apply the field, which is often created using an AC power source or a specialized electroculture device. Wires or electrodes are buried in the soil or wound around the plant. Induction stimulation. In order to achieve this, a scientific electroculture equipment, that's oddly worded, is used to produce a low-level AC electrical field in the soil or plant tissue. Without the use of wires or electrodes, the apparatus produces an electromagnetic field that produces growth and development. Now, see, that's super interesting. You need a few basic supplies. For instance, if you're employing DC, you'll need electrodes or wires, as well as a battery or low voltage power source. If you're employing AC stimulation, you will need wires or electrodes, as well as AC power supply, blah, blah. All right. Stop sharing. Back to me. So, and I realize that, take Jonah's comment off there. Where my electric fence touches the ground, it kills the grass. I guess short bursts of 5 kilovolts is too much. Oh, that's fantastic. So when Birdie gets back in, we'll start looking at some of the actual numbers probably. So I know that it's real popular right now to basically throw down some copper in your ground, throw down some different things, and just wrap it in a coil or a fancy shape, whatever it is. But as you can see, electroculture, especially when you're looking at it scientifically, it includes current. Now, some of these systems, depending on how you set them up, can get current. We've all seen, I'm sure most of the people that watch the channel here, you've seen where you can make an earth battery that just depends on the temperature and moisture differential in the ground. And you can pull like 0.2 volts off of that. And that's going to be a fairly constant power as long as you're able to maintain those conditions. You can end up putting those in a series and getting that up to a higher voltage. You could put those in a parallel and start actually trying to pull amperage, because that's one of the things that a lot of people, when they start testing those things, don't look at, where you're pulling voltage. But on the night of a full moon, like we were talking about with Bernie, on my solar panels, I'll pull in 60, 65 volts off my panels, which then my system regulates down to 48 volts, and that's where my system is set up to invert from. I've got a 48 volt inverter. So it won't start working or trying to do anything until it gets up to 48 volts, and then it will start going ding, 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 ding. And that tells me that there's enough voltage for me to send power, but that doesn't mean that there's power. And that is the difference. So with you could try and increase the amperage with a parallel, but now is where we start looking at when you actually do introduce voltage, which is you're going to have to set up a fairly elaborate system to actually make it functional in electroculture. When you do set up a system, what do these different voltages and amperages do to the plants? At certain voltages and amperages, the plants are going to be stimulated. At certain voltage and amperages, you're going to kill bugs, pests. At certain voltages and amperages, you're going to kill the soil biome. At certain voltages and amperages, you're going to cook the plant as I can't think or remember whose name it was that posted it. Kill it. There you go, Mr. Obvious. 5 kilovolts. Oh, that's hilarious. But yeah, at, 5 kilovolts, something that's meant to shock an animal, keep an animal out of an area or contained or away of something. That's way too much for the plant. So these are the things that we need to look at when we start looking at electroculture and discussing it. Now, secondly, when we were looking at that, when we were looking at the induction rather than putting electricity in, we were looking at magnetism, and they're putting out a magnetic field. Now, I know most people have watched Ken Wheeler and seen his work, and I've done the experiments myself also, where the south end of a magnet will produce which then points toward the north, so the north end of the magnet, but it's the south pole of the magnet or whatever. It produces more germination, stronger rooting. In a more recent video, he was showing where the ones where he had the north side, the seedlings produced more foliage, which I found super fascinating. And then the root system wasn't good. And he said there was a foul smell. It didn't have a good root system. They wouldn't take off because the plant at that point in time Bertie said 10 minutes or less. Fantastic. Can't wait to see you, brother. So at that point in time, you're wanting the plant to root. This is no different. Peacocks are real ornery right now. So when you take a fruit tree and you go get a bare bones fruit tree, one of the first things that you do when you get home after you planted it and watered it and made sure it's all settled in is cut back the limbs. And you cut back that fruiting side, that leaf side, because you want that tree to go down and start rooting and get a real solid root. You don't want the fruit side to start overwhelming that root side that it's not developed yet. So when he had the flip side, well, with that field, it produced more foliage, that fruit side. Now, what is actually happening when you put that magnet under the seed? What energy are you pulling down? So the magnet side is the magnetic side is opposite than from the electric side. It's pulling that energy down straight out of the ether and putting that more liveliness into the plant, that specific energy into that seed when you're doing it the correct way. Now, when you put in the other side, the electric, you're putting in straight raw electrical, which is when you break apart, like in a battery, when you're breaking apart the whatever the anode is made of, in order to power the battery. When that particle breaks apart, it breaks into an electron and an ion, an electrical side and a negative side and a positive side. And that negative side jumps on over to the cathode, and then the ion side floats in the mercurial solution, and it comes back together over in that cathode side, and this is where you're getting your power production from. In a basic galvanic system. So you understand that that electrical side and that ion side are two different things that are really energizing this plant, and now you're introducing both. So this is what Sunseed or Rachel had talked about. Yeah, the roots need to be, I need to highlight that. Bright white and little hairs. It's them little hairs, the roots like the carrot, and them little hairs are what actually are what's pulling in the food and doing everything. Them little hairs are the most important part. You can actually leave that centerpiece and the plant will die if it doesn't have all them little hairs on it. That's what's taking in everything and doing all the work. So like when I do it, I put in specific bacteria that try and clean them root systems off and keep them real nice. My upcoming episode, I draw some parallels to Ragnarok with the new, this is King of Cups, everybody. I love the spiders. This is one of the spiders, Chris. The new Super Mario movie, that does not mean I think Mario was there during that time period. You know what? I'm glad that you explained that, Chris, because I was pretty sure that you thought Mario was going to be at Ragnarok. Like, you know, like he doesn't have Mjolnir. He's got like he ate the mushroom. He stomped on the fiery plant thing and got the fireballs. And you know, fucking if only Mario had been at Ragnarok, then it just all might have turned out entirely different. So I find this interesting. Where again, this is with the copper coils. Now, when you look at that, let's see if we can pull up. I'm going to go ahead and make this small so you keep looking at me, and I'm going to try and pull this up. Old. Old electroculture patents. We'll see what kind of images we can get pulled up onto this. And present, share screen. Sharing the shit out of things today. All right. So now what you can see, and this is honestly my theory with Benjamin Franklin, where I think it's absolutely ridiculous that they try saying that he discovered electricity with a key and a kite and all this, and lightning struck it and blah blah. I think that's absolute nonsense. Luke L.C. King, and I don't know if he's still in the chat, but he's usually but he talks a lot about the differential between the voltage that you get between your atmospheric differential. So when you look at this contraption here, you can see that he's definitely trying to reach up very high compared to his garden area, and he's trying to pull in a differential between high and low. So, and most likely, I don't know if we can see this or not. Most likely he has some ground rods driven into the ground to even further that entire system, where you're going to pull further from the temperature differential, the moisture differential, all of these things, and then just the atmospheric differential, and all these things are going to kind of play a role in how this functions, how many volts you're pulling, how much amperage you're pulling, which is, see, like, look at this. Like that article was like, it just got discovered June 1917. Yeah, it's the new thing. It's fucking great. I like this one. Yeah, here you go. Franklin experimenting. So I honestly think, I don't think anybody was trying to channel lightning down a string to themselves. Anybody back then, people had witnessed lightning hitting trees. Some of the stories that we tell are just stupid. Like, people saw the damage lightning had done up until that point. Nobody wanted to be struck by that. So I think what he was trying to really draw on was the differential between the high and low, pulling that atmospheric voltage is what I think he was doing. So here we see some of the more simple contraptions, but you can still see they're putting a whole thing up in the air, trying to pull two different systems, and they are tying them together here underground, it looks like, which is what I'm going to assume why they have the dotty lines. This is probably where everything's tying together underground, and then you're getting quite a bit of height differential, and you're coiling it around. It looks like this is probably just a basic stick. And here's some proofs for it. Here's another detailed figure of one that's, again, making a very high. We look, and yes, this is in the background, but you look at the steeple of this church, and you look at how much taller it is than this fella here walking his donkey, or I think it's a donkey. But we look at the things in the foreground and in the background, and comparatively to these things, is this like a castle over here, maybe with a little flag? I don't know. But compared to these things, you look at the height of this tower, and this tower is pretty substantial, pretty damn substantial. Like, this man's only this tall, like if average man, 5'8", 5'9". So it's quite a bit. Looks like I don't really read French, but kind of get the idea again here. Here they got a cross set up. So this is obviously then an antenna array type. They're using more of the typical antenna style. Looks like that's pretty interesting. They got a bunch of very looped wires running through here. Types of brushes used in the experiment with the atmospheric electricity at the agronomy farm, 1930 to 1932. 3 brushes of type A were used. That looks like that top piece that they were looking at to try and put on top of it. That's impressive. Yeah. Here's that top piece where they're trying to pull it in. Looks like this might be able to be integrated onto a fence post. That'd be nice. Here we got another one. Again, the church, Christ of something, electroculture. Is that like the Church of Electroculture? That's hilarious. But you can see again here, they've got this well above the roof of this building, which rather looks like they got a window up here or a door. It looks like it's probably a 2-story or at least a 1-story with some kind of a loft, and they've got it well above that. Now here, leaf stimulation by electrothermic stimulator, mechanical record obtained by excursion of spot of light reflected from optical lever, which falls on the right of the drum. The electrical record obtained by excursion of galvanometer, spot of light adjusted to fall on the left side of the drum. What do we got going on here? Oh, this must be like, looks like here they're recording somehow their results, trying to record how much electricity is being stimulated into it. That kind of seems what they're trying to do here also is trying to see how much stimulation it was getting. Again, very important stuff when you're looking at these things. Electric garden. Here it looks like they've got an entire system set up inside of a nice greenhouse. Machine for a perpetually electrified garden. Perpetual. From 1755, General Magazine. It is the new thing, right? Could be in the 18th century. Didn't. It's true, they didn't in the sense that we normally use it today, but they did know about static. You gonna be all right? As a child, I remember discovering that rubbing a comb against my sleeve was somehow magically allowed me to pick up tiny scraps of paper, blah, blah, blah. It starts going on about electrical stimulation. So you can see that the people that were doing this, in none of these do you really see where they've, which isn't to say that it doesn't have effect. And I like all the experiments everybody's doing with the just putting the wire in the ground like that and running a loop. That's not to say, and here's Bernie.
Just
Bernie!
reset. I'm back. I'm back. Just connecting my computer. So I will be. Well, I guess I've rejoined, but I'll be rejoining proper within a couple minutes.
Good.
But
I
I'm still on my
appreciate
phone,
that,
so.
Zach.
Yes, sir. I sent Gerald and Charlie, if you guys are watching, I sent you the links to join if you want to contribute in the discussion on electroculture. And yeah, I will be fully set up and on in 2 minutes.
Nice. So as you can see, and I'm not against the experiments at all. I love the experiments. And I think that copper has other qualities that it's drawing in, not just in the idea of electroculture, but when you look at like copper tools that were used and the way they affect the soil as compared to iron, copper tends to, why all the time with it? Yes. Copper is going to draw more hydrogen as opposed to your oxygenation with your much heavier oxygenation with your iron or your steel tools. And so I think that it's having some benefits like that. And then I think you're pulling at least slightly, depending on how much you're extending your antenna or your electrode up, that you are drawing at least some voltage from it. You're at least getting some differential. Yeah, Bernie's here. He's just not here yet. That you're getting at least some differential. So that's at least, doing something. Where you see where a lot of these older experiments we're looking, yes, she's definitely saying pet me now, and then wanting to stand in front of my screen and threatening to step on my keyboard. Always during shows. She's like, oh, Dad's sitting right there. It's time to play. Such a little shit. Let go. Let go. Earlier, she didn't realize they're just getting now to where it's like it just warmed up. So they're having a tough time with the transition from hoodie to not hoodie occasional season and trying to dig at me the same way that they do when I'm wearing a hoodie. And it does not feel great. Right? Right, Miss Cutie Kitty? This was my kids' cat that I inherited. He's cutie. Come on. Come on. Well, that's a good conversation we got going on over here. Hail Skeptic. So I think that's probably having at least some mild benefit. I do have at least mild concerns about as the copper deteriorates. The copper is definitely going to start, especially in a small individual areas, because a lot of people then are just like putting in a whole bunch of them. I do concern about as the copper breaks down, starting to cause some poisoning in the soil because of such a heavy level of copper breaking down in such a small area. And Bernie's back. And I am back. The cat's making sure I stare at her ass.
Of course. I saw an awesome meme involving a cat's ass earlier today.
Dude, I think I might have seen the same meme. Straight up. It was like, was she like, I'm just trying to be on a Zoom call and my cat's trying to start a
OnlyFans page.
Yeah.
You got
Yeah.
it. That's the same one. Welcome, Charlie, our fellow alchemist and one from the Oriental alchemy perspective you studied. Good, Charlie. Sir, you had a question in the chat there.
Oh, yeah, I've been looking similar. Looking into how electroculture could be done with humans. So I don't know if that has a different name, but you could charge like the soil to make plants grow faster. You could also charge maybe water that you drink, or charge a person itself like a capacitor. It was interesting you mentioned AC. That's like a Tesla coil. I found like DC works pretty well because it's like dirt is like a material dielectric where you could store a charge in, like a Leyden jar. Leyden jar is just, actually I got one here. It's a Wimshurst machine, and this is an old Leyden jar that they would used to use. You could charge it electrostatic. So you spin the Wimshurst machine, and it builds a charge in the Leyden jars that are just like capacitors, and you'll get a spark up here. If I go fast enough.
That is epic, Charlie.
Yeah, thanks. But the idea is the people could be like a Leyden jar where the glass is the dielectric, and that's where the charge is stored. And there's an MIT video that explains if you charge the Leyden jar and then you take it apart, you could touch the metal of both the inside and outside, pieces. But then when you put them together, then it'll short. And if you short it with a piece of metal or something, it'll spark then. So that means the charge is actually stored in the glass or the dielectric. So you could do the same thing with a human. I think we could get two pieces of metal, one on the feet or the ground, and one on the head, and charge it up like this.
Absolutely.
High voltage, yeah.
Right, like that's a good point, Charlie. Like, especially I go into a lot of speculation with like the different royal crowns being a type of technology, and that's the metals on the top. And that a lot of the ancient royals of different cultures, Egyptians, pharaohs, stuff like that, also were covered in gold all the way down. And you can see that they have these gold and silver threads in their sandals, their shoes, all sorts of stuff. That would be an even more amplified grounding and electrocharged situation that they would be in, essentially, with this technology, and that it would be like this bioelectricity essentially with the electroculture on humans, and then is that some of the Oriental Eastern energy medicine practices, are they essentially tapping into this bioelectrical fields and energies? And the fact that you bring up DC works more better than AC. I'm not sure if you saw the stream last night with Philip and Cameron and Campbell on electroculture and orgonite and their coil stuff, but I brought up the speculation of, and then I lose my train of thought. Right? Like, oh my God, it was just on the tip of my tongue. I'm explaining the lead up to it, and then I completely forget the point. Oh, DC and AC, and is DC the natural, like spiritual electrical bioenergy, and is AC a distortion of this energy that we're using, maybe a harmful or parasitic electricity out of the natural energy that is everything?
Okay, interesting.
Yeah,
I know,
just thoughts,
the
right?
link-
Like these just random ideas, not necessarily stuck on them or.
Yeah, with the Leyden jar,
At
you
the same
can't charge
time,
it with
I
AC.
can see-
You have to use DC.
I can see where that case could be made, but on the same token, like when we look at so many different energetic systems, there is typically an oscillation of power, where DC is one of the things that makes that so useful, is it doesn't have that oscillation of power. It just is one smooth, even flow. So you don't have that up and down, but that up and down is also a very natural thing in most energetic systems where you have that. So, I mean, I don't know if I would necessarily call it either or harmful. Just, I would say you're probably going to get pretty vastly different results, and you would have to learn how to harness the best things out of each.
Here we have a joke for electrical engineers. Let me see if I could switch this camera view. No, maybe not. Okay, I'll just turn it this way. We have a joke in electrical engineering about capacitors. They blocks DC like this, but it'll pass AC like this. Electro boom.
I guess it.
Joke too. But yeah, the reason it blocks not because that's a good way to remember it. Capacitors, if it charge, if you have an AC signal to it, it'll charge one plate positive, and then when the cycle goes negative, it'll discharge that plate. So it'll never, it'll act like a short for AC. But with DC, the capacitor has to first charge it up before it discharges. So with the like a Leyden jar, it's like a capacitor, and you can charge it with DC, and then you could short the two metal, the inside and outside metal pieces together, and it'll spark. But if you put AC, it won't build up a charge. It won't store energy.
Right? Like, and that is nature's energy and static electricity and energy. They're all DC current, correct? And that AC, the alternating, isn't really a electricity or energy that we see too often in nature.
I guess so. You could maybe say like night and day is kind of like AC because it goes in and out, positive, negative. The Schumann resonance, which is like the Earth's frequency, is pretty AC.
Really?
Yeah, electroculture. Yeah.
You see what I was saying though with that oscillation? That's all AC is that oscillation, and that is represented in so many things. So while I understand all the advantages to DC, I mean, like in my house, even before you store the power into the battery, you want the power to be DC because the DC power stores. But when I want it to have a heavy push and do a heavy load of work, I convert it into AC, that DC into AC, where it's going to do that heavier load of work.
And it's pretty easy to convert back to DC. Just like a full bridge rectifier. I got some here. There's two of them. Here we go. And they just have 4 prongs. You have AC signal on 2 of the opposite, and then there's one side that has a corner cut off, and then that'll convert it to DC. So on the symbols on it look like this. Let's see. So these are the AC corners, and then this one that's cut is positive, and this is negative. And so you just apply any AC signal to that, and you get DC out. It's just 4 diodes connected, called a full bridge rectifier.
That's awesome, man. And see, once again, Charlie C doing real science, and I love it.
And, yeah, I don't know if you've seen this. Jeremiah Pop has been helping me with this. He's working on it. This was like something from Alexei Chekhov had shown, where if you charge these, it's like a capacitor too. When there's an outer surface that's aluminum, paper is dielectric, and then the bottom is also aluminum. But this is folded so that there's like 90-degree angles between these capacitors. And when you charge it, and then when you discharge it, it seems to create a repelling force on the ruler, which is just balancing here, you know. And Jeremiah was able to replicate it, but I haven't been able to yet. So I'm not sure
We
what
will get there.
Yeah, he was using some sort of high voltage. I think Jeremiah was using copper, and he that insulated it. There's a few tricks he's been giving me to how I get there.
Nice.
We'll
Jeremiah
replicate it.
is awesome. So back to electroculture. Foz yesterday, I didn't see it. One of Zertus's good buddies and sent him the link. He might come on, but that there needs to be a distinguish and discussion between electroculture and magnaculture, and the difference between that, right? So do you want to quickly discuss a little bit of that?
And can we Frankenstein them fuckers together is my question, because that's what I would be doing. Putting magnetic underneath the plant, putting electroculture above the plant, and and taking into account the different metals, because the metal that I would be putting underneath the earth would be iron, because the root system draws oxygen, and that's your ferromagnetic metal. And so all this accounts. I would take, and so please go ahead.
Oh, so this guy's still going. This is the opposite, I guess, of electroculture. I'm getting energy from the plants. So this one's not doing so well. It's been watered, but maybe just the transplant or take water from it. Yeah.
Right. So this is inverted electroculture. You're now showing pulling electricity out of the plants, but then you're showing that it's actually degenerating the plant, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah. So they haven't grown that much, and this one's kind of wilting, and that one's almost dead. Just been powering this little cat, which is normally powered by a solar cell, but I took that out and replaced it by copper and zinc to make it into a battery.
That's fascinating. Discovery, essentially, correlation that. So electroculture putting energy in accelerates the growth and helps the growth, but tapping and taking that electrical energy out is actually diminishing, harming, and destroying the plants. I'm pretty sure that's as good of inverse evidence as you can show that just the inverse effect of the electroculture.
Yeah, exactly. So something everyone else can try for themselves, you know. I recommend something that grows pretty quickly, like wheatgrass. Do some tests with that.
With what I was saying, then, when you're doing your copper up top and your iron down below, you're still playing off of just basically the same thing that we use in any kind of a generator, anything like that. So I don't see why those two energies wouldn't want to, if not necessarily used at the same time, maybe used in an oscillation with each other, where like at night during your more rooting time, you would hit it with the magnetic energy. And then during the day, during the solar time, you would hit it with the more of an electroculture energy, giving it that oscillation of energy. Or if you would want to run them both at the same time. But like I said, again, accounting into the understanding that that's basically a generator, basically your heart, So you're trying to apply that same thing into the plant, and trying to, on this plane where the plant actually appears, you're getting those two forces to come together, and that this life to be able to absorb it.
Okay. For magniculture, I haven't heard of that, but do you just get like a magnet and put it near the plants? Is that, or do you need
The
like a
South
oscillating
Pole
magnetic field?
apparently charges better, correct, Ben? I heard you talking about that a little
Yeah,
bit.
yeah. So you
before
want
I
the
joined.
south side of the magnet, yeah. But when you look at it, then the thing that everybody's been doing in that, like Ken Wheeler shows, is you put it on the south side of the magnet, like Bernie just said. Then the plant roots. He also did just recently an experiment, your typical, well, then I'll also do the side by side with the north. And the north ones, they produced more foliage, and they didn't root. So then there's the next question with the magniculture is you want to give it that southern energy, but during the fruiting cycle of the plant, would you want to switch it to the other side? And I don't know. Lots of experiments to be had on that.
Okay. Yeah, and going back to like AC versus DC, if you maybe you rotate the magnet, you can get a oscillating magnetic field. So is there any research you know about that? Spinning magnetic fields?
Not that I know of, but that's a very good prediction. I'm sorry, I'll be right back in one momento.
Okay.
Yeah, like, or even spinning it day and night, where during the nighttime, we know that the plant naturally wants to root. And during the daytimes when it's, producing chlorophyll, vegetating, things like that, does the north side of it, the actual North Pole, not the part that points north, but does the north side of the magnet create more vegetation, more foliage, and then the south side tend to have more of a rooting? So in that, would you want to, rather than doing a fast spin where you're getting both, would you want one during one part of the time during the day and one during the, opposite at night? So many things that nobody's put any science into whatsoever, that all these things can play into account. And then, like I said, if you're doing electroculture on top and you're doing the magniculture underneath, how are those two interplaying with each other in the middle where the plant lives?
And you could do electromagnetism too, to instead of having a solid state magnet like the coils they've been talking about, Gerald, you could get a rotating magnetic field, and just pulse it even. So low frequencies or just the frequency, amplitude. So there's a lot to search.
Exactly.
So do you think the Earth's magnetic field, so plants, do you think grow better in the southern hemisphere?
Boy, it sure seems like everything's jungles down there, don't it? A whole lot of jungle action going on down there, except for where they've, done some desertification that usually is because we're dumbasses. Like even on my mountain, you can see it, where they cut roads and run electrical lines, and the water quits flowing past that spot, and all of a sudden there's a big dead spot. Like, oh, that's nice.
Where do you recommend we do some research? Where have you gotten the knowledge from? Electroculture, there are PDFs or books you recommend?
No, this was a lot of people have been asking about it and researching it, and I'm just delving into it. So, I mean, I've done some study on it, but I'm by no means any kind of an expert. So I was just reading articles that I was pulling up, and well, then let's research it, because so many people are putting out YouTube videos where all they're doing is putting a coil and jamming it in the ground and blah blah blah. So I went through and started looking at, and then the article even said that it was a new thing. So I started looking at some of the patents throughout history. I pulled up old patents, and you saw that a lot of these systems, it very much appears like they're playing off of the voltage differential in the atmosphere, between the atmosphere and the ground. And because these things, the ones that I was pulling up anyways, oh, you're such a pain in the ass. You guys can't see it, but there is a cat right in front of me trying to, when you're doing these things, you're trying to look at the person. I know it doesn't like now it looks like I'm looking, but I'm looking at him, and you are. Anyways, these things weren't like just something that was 6 inches or 2 or 3 feet. The ones that they were showing, like the one picture, they had a church with a steeple in the background, and this thing appeared to be, it's taller than the church steeple. And then the one picture was this electroculture building, and appeared to be a 2-story building, and the thing was a substantial amount taller than that. So it seems to me like they were pulling more off of the voltage differential from the atmosphere and building that up somehow and using that to direct it. So it was really more of putting more actual power into the soil than what, a lot of these people that are making these videos and whatnot are doing.
Okay. Well, yeah, patents are a good place to go to look for research. It's interesting. Have you heard of certain rocks that affect? Because I was doing research on this moss agate, and they said it was tradition that they would bury moss agate stones like this with plants so they help it root, because the structure of this kind of looks like a rooting structure.
Sure. And then what makes it hard? So the coloration is the mineral, and the whole reason that it's an agate is because it's been covered over with quartz, which is a very you've got, as our friend Jeffrey's been showing, the reverse piezoelectric and piezoelectric energy. Piezoelectric coming from when you put pressure on it, that's the degradation and breakdown and the energetic release of that degradation of the crystal, where the reverse piezoelectric causes it to have some real other interesting properties, where you're putting energy into the quartz and the quartz is feeding energy instead of releasing it. And so that's super interesting. You're going to have a lot of quartz in around that. Any energy you're putting in there, it's definitely going to be altering and at the very least rectifying. So annoying.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. Have you heard of putting sensors on plants, like EKG, electrocardiogram sensors, so that you could see pretty much what the plants are feeling or thinking or talking by
some of the patents did, yes. At least 2 of the patents did, and they had some fairly complicated machinery that was, one of them was picking up electrical signal and doing it, like with just a needle like that. And they had a few other machines that a couple of them patents that were trying to see what was going into the plant, which is, again, very, if you're trying to really be scientific about it. One of the people in the chat was talking about, how the grass around his fence dies. Well, he's running an electric fence that's meant to shock an animal and keep it away. Obviously, that's too much. At some points you're going to be killing pests. At some points you're going to be stimulating things. At some points you're going to be killing the biome of the soil. At some point you're going to be frying the plant. Like Lucas said, this is where other components come in, like where Lucas was talking about the sodium setting the electroconductivity of the whole system. And as you burn through it, it's going to burn those pieces out, and you're not even able to carry charge anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of like water. If you put room temperature water, it's good. If you put boiling water, it'll kill. So you got to be careful with electricity as well. Put the right frequency and amplitude. You could give it some energy. If not, you could destroy it.
Exactly. And and what's DC going to do? What's AC going to do? They had both. The article I was looking up and then they had completely separate magnaculture, or whatever you would want to call it. So these are all completely separate ideas. And again, where I'm curious, because rather than thinking that one is, because I know it's very most people realize direct current, but we also find alternating current in nature. So I'm very curious what each one of those stimulates. And then once again, just like I was talking about with the combination of the electroculture and the magnetic side of things, well, then what if we also did a rotation of like, what if a little bit of AC into the system every now and then, is helpful. It gives it a little woof, where then that's only something good for a very short duration, where most of the time DC is going to be more beneficial. Lots of questions, no answers.
Yep, experiments we could do. You could also apply it not just to the dirt, but to the water or the plants themselves. We can attach electrodes to them and leaves.
Right, so the answers are out there, and there's been lots of different people doing different independent experiments on their own, and it's just so many experiments for all of us to do and start doing.
I was saying I don't have any of these answers.
Sharing it, and yeah, for sure, right? But with the agricultural and electroculture real science series that we're starting and doing, and essentially this is part of it, but that we'll be doing an official titled series of it going forward with our own experiments launching in the next couple of weeks. I myself are going to start doing one of lettuce, one of spinach, and one maybe of either carrot or a beet or something like that. And that I'm going to use the same seeds, same soil, same containers, same light, but then have one with the regular tap water as a control, one with the regular tap water then turned into colloidal silver or gold water from my monoatomics that I'll be watering, and then one with the diatomic blue oxidized water to see if that actually poisons the plants as opposed to helping it, or if it does help it, who knows. And that if I can repeat the 6-foot lettuce that I grew in my garden last year by watering it with the colloidal waters and giving it a little bit of actual pure monoatomic gold powder at the very start, and doing tests that way. And then I'm encouraging Mike over at Faraday Research to start doing one with his structured water versus just his tap water. With Gerald's already starting doing some of his experiments with his seeds and stuff, started it, and I encourage everyone to get involved with this sort of stuff. And whether it's the electroculture, and also in that, that was another one of the, not just 3, there's like 5 or 6 total that I wanted to do. I might also do microwaved water with one, but I don't know if I'll do that this year. I might wait till next season. And then one with the just basic wood stick with the solenoid copper wire going up, building that little electroculture antenna. And if I have enough energy and ability and I guess what's the word, inspiration, try to maybe also repeat Ken Wheeler's battery South Pole magnetic experiments as well, but I don't know, probably too many in the first go. Maybe you just keep it to 4.
And I'm also very curious how the difference between how it affects a rooting thing, like you said, carrots.
Exactly why,
as
right? There's the lettuce,
as
the
opposed
spinach,
to a green.
You got it. You got it. That's why I'm including.
And then also maybe something that is a fruiting, like a melon, rather than
I'm in Canada,
broccoli, like a melon.
How about you down in
cannabis?
California? I can either ship you some monatomic material, or you can start making some yourself to start doing some of this. But we all should be doing these experiments and get them set up. But I don't have a greenhouse at my current setup right now, so melons pointless, just too short of a growing season here in the western prairies of Alberta. Ooh, we got Fozzie, Tyler, man, joining. Welcome.
What's going on?
Good to meet you, Tyler.
How are you?
Yeah. Yeah, we should try to get Matthew Rife too. Hopefully, he is a lot with electroculture. He mentioned he's working with some farmers.
Absolutely. Sorry, yeah. Duh, brain dead. Yes, that was
I've been
another
meaning
one
to
that
call
I was
Matthew
going to
anyways.
include, is the Rife charge structured water. That was the other one. Thank you for reminding me there, Charlie. And
My
yes,
phone with
absolutely.
Telegram on it. He messaged my phone with Telegram on it, and it won't take a charge. And I've been meaning to call him anyways.
So I guess I don't know where you guys are up to, because I've only just jumped in the stream without watching the video beforehand. It's just walking the dogs and all that. So yeah, what's the topic? What are we discussing currently?
No worries, Ty. We've been discussing electroculture, and I brought up magnaculture on your suggestion from yesterday, and I was literally just about to start going through the images that you had posted for yesterday's electroculture. So if you wouldn't mind sharing them or bringing up some of your points, good sir.
Well, you've caught me pretty off guard. I've actually just gotten back from walking the dogs. I haven't got my computer and all that.
No worries.
But I had to screenshot them because it was a Scrib-D document, and you need the paid subscription for it.
Right.
Or you get, a certain amount every month or whatever. So I was able to screenshot them to get around not being able to save them. But
Beautiful.
I've got the link.
I suggest everybody does that. And sorry to interrupt. No. Luckily, you sent them to me, so I have them. So do you mind if I ask you some of the questions or just basics about what you sent here?
Well, yeah. Like what I was bringing up specifically with that distinction, because I know they're sort of being used a little bit, they're sort of being used interchangeably a bit. Everyone sort of either calls it electroculture or magnaculture, or I've even, people are calling it electroculture, which could possibly be the distinction again, where that's sort of talking about more using actual like current through the plant more than it being a field thing.
Yes. Okay. I'm glad you bring that up as well, because shout out once again, Sherry Ives, who sent me this amazing electroculture book, and it's from the Lehman James Briggs Forgotten Books, and you can actually download it as a PDF online. But it's got a bunch of different electroculture experiments from the U.S. Agriculture Department in the 1920s and 30s. And one of the main tests that they put focus onto was where they were putting a whole bunch of AC currents and direct current voltage into it, and that it was creating negative effects on it. So that's why they finally ruled it as a bunk technology that harmed it and didn't work, and didn't continue investigating it further after that.
There was a big push between the First and Second World War by Britain in particular, and they invested a lot into studying it, at being at risk of food shortage and all that. But it being sort of, between the military campaigns and just, England, you got to assume that they just swept that up. They found their results and just swept it under the rug and put the pseudoscience title on it. And that's where it disappeared from what it seems.
As they do with every over unity, free energy, or national security technology or science throughout.
There was what made me really pay attention to the language of it was that I kept when people are running sort of the indoor sort of tests for it all, or not tests, but when people are doing the instructional videos, half of them are using a magnet to create that, like they're using a magnet, a copper wire, and a galvanized nail, and that's creating the field sort of thing. But then
so electromagnetic as opposed to a natural stable.
Or as opposed to the other videos, they use a 9-volt battery. You know what I mean? And so that's, in theory, I think they're what, DC, aren't they? A battery, yeah, that's direct
Yeah.
current.
Yes, sir. So DC versus AC in them, which is actually good to see the different ones, and that hopefully everybody that tries each different way, the key part is to make sure you have a control
Yes.
that you're also growing along with the one that you're doing this experiment with, and recording the whole process along the way so it can be usable science and like results, and eventually, you know, we're turning this into something.
We need to aim for that 30%. You know, that's the sort of benchmark that I saw repeated from the French studies in the late 1700s, with, you know, with all the timing.
AFCE, the French Association of Electric Cultivation. Have you heard of them? I was asking
No.
ChatGPT and they gave me a list.
Right. Well, that
They're
might have
pretty
been that might have been the organisation that did it, but it coincided with the possibility of them, you know, maybe using that in the early incubators and all that shit, because it disappeared sort of right, you know, I think it was about 1830 or 1840 was when it kind of just, or even earlier, sorry, it was late 1700s that it fully disappeared. Then we had all the 1800s stuff go down, and
that's a really good point. And that earlier at the start of this stream, Ben, you mentioned how you didn't believe Benjamin Franklin was the discoverer of electricity with the kite going up to the lightning bolt. And 100%, there's all these 1600s and older German and French science books that literally have chapters with these depictions of both the cathedrals and just going up and collecting the different levels of electrical differential from the atmosphere to the ground and the architecture in between the two, and that like they were studying the science of it, writing chapters of this 400 or 500 years ago, and it's been completely erased. And when you understand that, and then how advanced electroculture really can be, and such things as like the megaliths, the pyramids, the different ancient macro architecture, that chances are it's a lot more developed, but that there's a much bigger understanding that's being hidden from us, but still in a portion of our society and technology today.
Anecdotally, China's still using electroculture or magnet culture pretty heavily. You know, it's a huge part of feeding their population there. So I haven't got any more info or any references to that statement, but like I have heard that they're the ones that sort of kept going when the West gave it up after the war or whatever.
Yeah, the picture is depicting Benjamin Franklin, you know, with the kite, but yeah, actually he never did that experiment. He had another group of researchers he had mentioned too, and they performed the experiment for him, but they did with a lightning rod and a Leyden jar. Yeah, so that's what we're taught in electrical engineering, but still culturally explained that he did it himself. But Charles Steinmetz though actually did some interesting lightning experiments before Benjamin around that time, and he was known as like the capturing lightning.
Why we're taught. And I have to just point out, and then I'll let you go on with this, Charlie, because please explain this more. That's huge. But that they make the first experience of collecting electricity from the air a traumatic one of, we got shot by lightning with the kite, like don't ever put anything up there, where then it's like, you're never going to look at this technology that is literally collecting that, and the science of that is built into everything that's hidden right in front of us.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, he never did the experiment, so I don't think he was at any risk. But others have tried to replicate it based on the first group that did it based on his request, and a lot of people died trying to replicate it. But before that, there was people in China, like you mentioned, that were doing it, and even monks that would do it on purpose, do like a kite or balloon technique, launching with fire to create the buoyancy for lift, and then lightning would strike it, and they would attract it into their body, and it was called Lei Shendao, which is a method of attracting lightning into the body and storing it. Yeah, so I was told this by a master that learned from his 3 masters, and he said, "Don't attempt it because you'll die if you try to do this." But there was a method to do it, and the monks that were able to master it were really powerful, and they could do things like predict the future based on the energy they got from the lightning flash.
Wow. And so, for those that don't know, Charlie has a history of, you went over to China, was it? Or
Yep.
Tibet, China, and you studied under Oriental Eastern alchemists and like full in like with actual masters. Like,
Wow. I wouldn't have even pictured such a thing existed. Oriental alchemist masters. That's crazy.
Yeah, I think it originated in India, with Buddhism, and then I moved to China, and then they really made it really practical. But this is thousands of years ago, so they really mastered it. And they recently opened, transportation between the U.S. and China, so I was able to find some masters there. They're able to teach foreigners. It's a big deal to teach foreigners because most of them believed that they shouldn't. So a lot of groups didn't. But I found a group and a translator that could translate Chinese to English because they didn't speak English and I didn't speak Chinese, so it worked out eventually. Yeah, I was able to learn from them, but it took a while.
Yeah.
There's some
Hey,
cool
old
techniques.
priestess. I don't know why she's in Ohio.
so Charlie, did you ever witness them like actually get struck by lightning, or you at least saw them like trying to go out and do this, or just stories that were taught to you of their practices?
That was just a story I was told from their masters, but not to attempt it. There were some people that tried to learn it, but again, they were told not to learn it. but some people insisted on it. There were a few people that wrote about it. David Verdessi was one. And besides that, the chi that they produce is very electrostatic like thunder. And they might be like the Vajra you might have heard, which is both electric and like a diamond, or it's the ultimate attack and defense. And that's kind of like the Vajra hand, and the symbol of the Vajra is like the Buddhist symbol, where there's a center handle, and then at the end are 4 or 3 pieces.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was
to
like a
achieve
tool
the
or
lightning
metaphor.
strike, you just go out looking like Mr. T, just like hang yourself.
Oh my goodness! Does lightning
And,
activate that thing? Is that like a lightning activating fucking device? Oh,
I think most of what they use is like a kite.
cause someone to gonna go either get struck by lightning or hold the power of Thor.
Isn't there people that can put their finger, like, you see those crazy videos of people like putting their finger in a socket and like getting a light globe to light up, or I've even seen someone like arcing to paper and getting the paper to light on fire. I don't know how.
Yeah, the group I learned from, they develop it in their body and they call it chi, but they don't use electricity from the walls. I built a device that does, that can produce the similar effect, but it's not similar to chi that they use. So I'm just trying to study the differences between the electricity that they call chi and real electricity, because I'm an electrical engineer researching this. So that was one interest in me, but I couldn't ever measure chi accurately. I tried oscilloscopes and thermal cameras and a few different methods.
Did you ever try the cobalt glass lenses or something through like the UV spectrum? Supposedly that helps in visualizing the orgone or etherical. We got to bring Michael Boyd back on for this as well.
Because I think if we're sort of connecting lightning to chi, or any conductivity of human energy with that lightning suggesting that it's photon, right? Or it's not. Chi suggesting more of like maybe ether or something. Am I right?
Yeah, they told me lightning is closer to chi than electricity is. So they were able to convert lightning into chi, but you can't convert electricity really into chi. I know Bruce Lee was trying to do that because he learned from one of the Qigong masters, and he was trying to get AC and hold on to AC like from the power from an outlet. And they thought that would charge their body with the chi instead of doing the years of practice that's normally required.
Fascinating you bring that up, and it brings me back to that first idea of AC or DC being the natural, AC being like this like harmful-ish electricity, parasitic electricity, and that like that DC static, and once again those full golden robes and their crowns and all of that, and then walking on that red carpet collecting it all, could they channel and collect that energy? And then does that activate their crowns? Like you see in Egypt, they have their crown on, and then that big red glowing portal thingy, ball lightning plasma on top, or their halo. Like,
Yeah, there might be something to the crown, because trees kind of do that. Like pine trees, you see they have really sharp, pointy tips, and they can grow real tall, and that kind of acts like a lightning rod. Where it'll discharge any charge that builds up on the ground, so it won't get struck by lightning. That's why we build the lightning rod, sharp rods to discharge the energy, so that there's no buildup for lightning strikes. So maybe a crown does something like that. I don't know.
Right, and grounding, and there has to be more purpose of them putting such wealth and resources of gold and gemstones and everything into these the old ancient crowns and the ancient suits just even a few hundred years ago, but that you see like African or Asian or even the Europeans, but then always the popes and the different priests and whatnot.
Remember video games where
the Orthodox Christians and the Catholics, they're dressed up in their giant freaking elongated crowns and the golden silver robes and like threads and whatnot, and still you see them go like, gotta be something to it. And their staff
with you're talking about like sort of the change to AC being sort of a bit more of a harmful thing. I think I was looking up the language of it all, and a lot of the coincidentally like hertz, killer, watts, there's a few of these like it's sort of almost got damage, it's like in the wording, and a lot of them come from I think it's 1920 or 30. I think a lot of them are German, from German people, like watts.
Oh, it's named after Hertz. Yeah,
Hertz, Hertz and killer. I always thought as that's pretty. That came in at the same time sort of AC was coming out, right? And that's where they fried the elephant. So it's sort of like what you're saying. They were really adding the connotation of like the suggestion of death or injury to this energy. But I noticed it's because it isn't grounded or whatever. It's like what you're saying. It's we've got the Earth sort of closed circuit or whatever, which is in harmony with Ohm's law. But with AC, you have to go Ohm's law, Watt's law. Then you get your efficiency. But I don't think the AC it's not in harmony with Ohm's law. Because it's not a closed circuit, it's not grounded, it's not the Trinity like we see in everything, like fractally in everything. It hasn't got that order.
Well, I mean, it is grounded when you put it in a Trinity, though. Right?
But it doesn't have
when you go three-phase, that's when you don't need to have the neutral. That's when everything's balanced.
So the theory is, if we just like the Earth, we're adding the Earth into a wire, where we could just use the Earth, like the actual ground, whereas we add that into a wire with the AC. But I could be really wrong with this. So I'm not.
I'm not saying that you're wrong, but I'm saying that like where the problem comes in with a lot of these things is there's no amperage. Like we've all seen the Earth batteries and things like that.
What you just said was one of the most brilliant things ever, and then what you just said is also takes that brilliance to the whole nother level with the Trinity, because these are both like biblical things you're talking about, and then also the actually explaining how we can connect this in Tequitech and explain how it works and connect it into our modern day electrical system.
Yep.
We just now have to figure out, like you said, how to step up that amperage. And is it from the antenna going up and then some sort of third phase connecting it with like the vacuum tubes or whatever, and then the antenna array, bringing in the radiant heat energy, and I believe is actually the key to it.
And Nikola Tesla was doing experiments with AC, high voltage, low current, and he passed it through, he said, in the stratosphere, and it was creating aurora borealis-like effects and near the Colorado Springs laboratory, and horses with horseshoes, because they had metal, shoes on their feet, would kind of get shocked by the electricity because he would ground it.
Yep.
And the horses would jump and freak out miles away from his experiments. So he used both the ground and in the stratosphere. He said if you pass it, that's why his goal was to pass it over the ocean before even wireless communication was done. He wanted to pass energy through the air.
Nice.
That's crazy. And I think I could be wrong because I've done the research into the sort of the music aspect of the 432 to 440 hertz or whatever it was, but I think that might be linked. It's maybe around 1940. Someone could correct me on that, but when they actually changed that over, but
it's also at the same time they changed that daylight savings time, which indeed is the exact opposite. It fucks over farmers, which they claim it's for, but really that they say it upsets the whole routine of the animals and really fucks with your animals more than even the farmers. But as every person, it's like if you're in a working cycle, the time change, it's so stupid and unnatural and fucked up. And that's the exact same time they changed that 432, the natural frequency, or one of these saccochios, to that 440. And also around that same time period, essentially wiping out the entire old electrical grid through those wars, the DC generating power system of old, and then now re-putting in this AC parasitic electricity system.
And now even further, if you listen to Eric Dollard, a step even further, where before they had everything set up in more of a 3-phase with a Y, so that way it's balanced. In all these bigger areas, they've pulled that, and now it's not like that. It's an unbalanced system now too. So without an extreme neutral setup, you are having such feedback.
So is it forever trying to ground with the earth? Is it forever trying? Yeah.
Can we swing back to Ohm's law?
Yeah.
Ohm, that natural ohm, it's a full thing, and that's how just the law of electricity and how you brought that up. Please repeat what you said about Ohm's law and what you're saying there, Tyler.
All right. Well, I don't know. Like I haven't really gone into it too much, but it was just something I was kind of just more fleshing out the idea where, like, I was trying to just make sense of all the different energy forms and sort of like what state they were in, and AC, like it seemed like they went over to AC, and like in order to do that because DC, as far as I know, is grounded to the earth, right? So it's already it's within the closed circuit of the earth, right?
Batteries are DC, and they don't have to be grounded to the earth.
True.
But Ohm's law was named after George Simon Ohm. A lot of these terms are named after people.
Yeah.
Ohm.
You have to be careful with a lot of these, because I know a lot of they kind of put the newer like definitions or origins on them when we meditate with Om. I'm sure it goes back further than
Simon Ohm, yeah. And Heinrich Hertz, it was named after Hertz. He was a German physicist who did that.
I think it's I can't. Is it omega or Om, that the symbol in Greek or whatever? It's the
Omega, yeah.
Omega, as well as Om. I think I could be wrong though. But yeah. But what it seemed like was that in order to like close the AC circuit and monetize it or whatever, it almost seems like they use it's all wired up so it doesn't ground to the earth. And the issue is that I think it's a lot to do with whether it's like wave or ray. Like no, sorry, it's the direction of the flow. So that changed, that reversed when they went to AC as well. But yeah, I'll have to. It's another thing. I haven't got the booklet that I was reading on that. That's with my electroculture one.
It's some of the, this is mostly the symbol done with Om, and then this is Omega, Greek. This is, I think, Indian.
The first
Sorry,
one,
the girlfriend was demanding me on the phone.
the first one is Om as well, right? I'm pretty sure it.
Yeah, Omega normally it's Greek, and then Om is more like an Indian origin.
So the energy through those symbols, some of these sacred geometries, and that is it can't be defeated. Someone in the community, or maybe Space Case, one of the Adam, went over the Indian sacred sigils. I forget what they're specifically called, but that there's ones that were, or was it you, Charlie, that also brought this up?
Mhm.
That they emit radiation. The ones that are like made of gold, silver, and like a few other things that like they're actually emitting energy radiation out of them. It's been measured small amounts. No? Okay, I will find out who it was, get the source for it, and it's absolutely fascinating. But please continue.
Yeah, I'm a bit lost where I was, to be honest, but
it's epic. It's just spitballing, right? Just throwing different ideas, and it's alchemy, right? Just connecting it all. And Charlie, do you want to maybe continue with some more of your epic experiences while experiencing the Oriental alchemy of the East?
You've time to look at John Chang trailer, but there was Lawrence Blair, which was doing a documentary. He was trying to find Darwin's dodo bird. I think it was a finch, a certain finch that grew, the beak grew, and that's what inspired Darwin to do evolution. Right, wrote his book on that. And so he wanted to travel there, and this is along like in the 70s or 80s, and they had difficulty getting there because it was a far remote region, and he had to take a big journey. And his brother was doing filming, and they ended up making it into a documentary. But on their way, they found a lot of interesting things, and one was a medicine, a healer. He's a qigong, and called John Chang, and he's passed away now. But during the time, they learned all sort of things from him, and that was the first time anyone caught it and then shared on video some of the effects of it. So he was able to light newspaper on fire and create electricity that would shock, and use that with acupuncture needles. And he taught a few Westerners, but then his master got angry that he was teaching Westerners, and he cut off all Westerners. But for a little while, there was a few. Costa Dervinus was one. He's still alive. Wrote a few books on his experience with him. And Jim McMillan, who I learned from, visited John Chang. I was able to find him in Java. It's an island. And learned from him for a while. But he ended up, Jim McMillan ended up developing prostate cancer, probably due to the meditation techniques and storing the energy in the lower dantian, which is maybe dangerous if you don't have a master. And it was difficult for him to visit his master. So it ended up hurting himself, and he died of prostate cancer. But before that, I was able to learn some of the techniques from him, because he believed Westerners should learn about it, even though he was forbidden to kind of teach it. And so yeah, I learned the techniques. I could show later in like presentation what he taught. So everyone else that might be able to learn from it. But again, it's dangerous to do on your own, so be careful.
Yes, please. We will have to do a future full Adept Alchemy 101. That's another series we are doing, and full episodes on that, because that is going to be a series all its own within the series. And it's fascinating because it's hidden in plain sight, and like soft disclosure through media and like the television series, like The Witcher, and your story with the collecting the lightning, right? And if for those that've seen the Netflix series The Witcher, There's like the one witch, and when she's going through her training, they're all collecting that lightning in the bottle and stuff. And it's like fascinating. Like these are actual occult real practices. Also, there's like the last Airbender series, and I wonder how much out of that and the elementals and whatnot, and so many different.
Dude, that's
ones.
like that's the only show that I let my grandsons watch, and they're here. My grandson spent like the last couple of years. My daughter had some problems, so they spent almost a year here. You know, out of like 2.5 years, they spent like almost a year here, and I outside of like YouTube videos, I'd look up and let them watch the Airbender series. We bought that so they could play it on the DVD, and yeah, that's good stuff.
Nice, brother.
Yeah, I recommend it. Yeah, the creator and the director of the Airbender, the last Airbender, was I think a Buddhist and Taoist, and he was able to take a lot of techniques he learned and actually put them in there. So they're real teachings in there about Lao Tzu and Tao Te Ching, all sorts.
Oh, absolutely. And like if you, the like animated series, right? Like it goes so much more into it. And the first thing I noticed was every single episode, there's a full moral story being taught through it, right? Like this humble moral story. And then also like you're getting all of these different occult, mythical, real knowledge lessons throughout it all.
Yep, exactly.
So on the next episode of Odin's Alchemy, it will be Bernie drinking banana onion juice. You didn't
As
see
long
that
as it's
episode
not
where he's
eggplant. I can handle banana, but not the eggplant.
I logged in with my computer just to put a link. And that's the link for the Ring of Fire. There's a clip that someone took out and edited to share just the Zhong Cheng segment of it. But the Ring of Fire was several series of his travels through Indonesia and Java, the islands of Java, and he went like on pirate ships, and it's a pretty interesting story. And Lawrence Blair lived through it and survived it, and he built a house there in Java. And that story is interesting too, because the neighbors there were helping build a house, and the whole community got together and built him a island paradise. But yeah, Zhong Cheng, when he went there, he had an infection in his eye and was looking for a healer, and they said, yeah, you should see this Qigong master. And yeah, this is the story. So this little clip will show him. The footage is pretty old, but still good enough if you could get the idea. And a lot of people visited him, verified it's real, but the video that they got is pretty amazing, showing real Qigong. And then there's masters in China that do the same thing. So I learned from Dr. Zhang Fang in China. And they're near the Yellow Mountain in China, where a lot of the Taoists and monks came from.
That's so epic, Charlie. All right, let's watch this.
Super,
and like,
super cool, man.
I know
really, and I think I watched this video. Didn't you send me this video the last time we met, Charlie? I believe
I
watched
it the last time. Yeah, it's epic, and like I'd seen it once before, like 15 years ago, I think, probably like right around like the first few years of like the real YouTube surfing, and like it just always resonated with me as like real and stuck with me when I saw this.
Yep, that's the real alchemy.
It was in the big city where Java confronts the 20th century that we got a real shock.
Now just good.
Lorne was suffering from a bad eye infection at the time. A cameraman's cause for panic. Lawrence had heard of a man who might be able to help and dragged me to him despite my reservations.
Is it in? Yes, good luck. You just relax and enjoy, Lord.
He uses acupuncture needles and the traditional points, but with a twist. Through them, he directs a form of electricity, as he calls it. But he doesn't draw the electricity from a wall socket. He claims to generate it within his own body. It was nothing like any acupuncture I'd ever had. I was getting really powerful electric shocks and couldn't control my movements at all.
Yeah, Dynamo Jack is another name.
He says that what he does is no more supernatural than an electric eel, which also knows how to harness its yin and yang energies.
Yin yang, positive and negative, you know. And my positive from here and my negative from here. And we meet together, this can get like electricity.
And is this because you're special? You have a special sort of body?
Meditation every day.
It's meditation.
Meditation every day. Like a yoga.
Like a yoga.
But I study about 18 years.
18 years?
18 years. From my child before.
Can you project this energy through your hands only or through other things as well?
Like you can touch me like this. It's nothing, okay? It's my burn. Just like this.
Very powerful talk.
Simi was skeptical at first.
So she's touching into the lower dantian, which is like the power source where it stores the energy. So that's where it'd be most powerful. She was just a sound recorder, but later they invite scientists over to study them. And they try to measure it with the voltmeter and oscilloscopes, but they can't measure it because it's momentary and it's very like high voltage when destroy a lot of the equipment. So I tried similar methods, but no success. I did catch it on a thermal camera though, but I haven't tried, like you mentioned, the different types of filters you might be able to use.
Later, he told us that anybody could learn this. God had given us all the yin-yang polarity, but it takes discipline and meditation to awaken and control it. And you must be very aware of your emotions. This energy can be dangerous. It can kill as well as heal. Then he asked for our newspaper. Whatever he had done to our newspaper, it's how he'd healed my eyes that made me wonder. What do these people living in the shadows of the volcanoes still know that we of the West have forgotten?
See how he's almost vibrating something there? Like he's getting the particles to speed up.
Oscillating it.
I first met him in the early 80s in a Chinatown of urban Java. He didn't want his real name or address revealed, so we called him DJ for Dynamo Jack. He was only a healer, he said, but he did direct a powerful energy generated from his own body into his patients. Sometimes he used the needles, sometimes just his hands. He called the energy chi, and it was so strong that he usually needed a grounder to hold his patients' feet. For years, we followed him around Java on his healing rounds, pleading to be allowed to film him, but he always refused, saying his powers resulted from a type of meditation with an ancient tradition of secrecy. It was only when my brother Lorne was suffering from a serious eye infection that he finally allowed us to film him in 1987.
It was nothing like any acupuncture I'd ever had. I was getting really powerful electric shocks and couldn't control my movements at all.
Yin yang, positive and negative, you know. And my positive from here and my negative from here. And we meet together, this can get like electricity.
And is this because you're special? You have a special sort of body?
Meditation every day.
It's meditation.
Meditation every day. Like you can touch me like this. It's nothing, okay? It's my burn. She's like this.
For our sound recordist, it was also a shocker. He then took our newspaper outside and showed us how qi can also be used to set things on fire. When he heard we'd shown this footage in public, he was very upset and refused all our future efforts to contact him again. As the years passed, we sadly resigned ourselves to never seeing him again. My brother Lorne never did, for by 1997 he was already dead, when I again found myself with DJ, now treating me for an eye problem. But it wasn't this that brought me back. He had tracked me down out of the blue and invited me to tell me a story. He had just returned from 2 years on a deep meditational journey, alone in the heart of Borneo. Amongst his revelations, he had seen, he said, how history was moving on into great change, and the old wisdom was vanishing. So he'd called me back to film just enough of him to remind us that we all have undreamed of powers sleeping within us, and that there's nothing special about him except for his training in waking them. Grounding this patient, my cameraman Joe is having to use all his weight to keep contact.
So I just have to pause this once again to state, like, this is so fucking epic. And like the first time I watched this, it's like it just stays with you for life. Like that there is this hidden super world that still exists within the East, and it is what we have completely lost in the West with our disconnect of consciousness and spirituality and our ancestry and all of that. And you know, it's with the powers within everybody, whether it's, it starts with meditation, self-stillness, and self-honesty, dropping the ego and any self-dissonance or cognitive dissonance, and being honest with yourself and the universe. And then dedication, practice, repeat, and learning from the masters of old.
She is pushing him away. He seems able to control the amplitude of this qi, like a dimmer switch, and it causes uncontrollable responses in the patients and their grounders.
I can barely keep my hand on you. Fly off, the electricity is so strong.
This mother unwittingly grounds her child. He won't sit still, so she's asked to hold him and grin and bear it. Sometimes signs of this passing energy can be seen in the transmitter too. This qi stuff is only the surface, he says, of the real adventure beneath, in the meditational technique. Projecting qi from the palm of the hand can also be used to resist rifle pellets, he says. First, you learn to distinguish between yin and yang qi in your body. Then how to pool it in your navel chakra. Then how to project it, he says. And it's the proportionate mixture between yin and yang which accounts for different effects, like pulling or pushing objects or igniting them. Then he gets really strange. He says that mastering yin qi is the key to the spirit world. There's a long tradition of Indonesian krisis being possessed by spirits. So people bring him their krisis to see if they're duds. Here, he says, he doesn't manipulate matter by projecting mixtures of yin and yang qi. He merely creates a field of yin energy in which, he says, if there's a spirit, it can manifest itself. So I invited a small group of scientists back from the United States with measuring equipment to test if DJ was for real. And if so, where might this energy belong on the electromagnetic spectrum? Catherine Cook, CEO of the Mind Science Foundation in Texas. Dr. Roger Nilsson, a Swedish medic and international racing sailor. Dr. Greg Simpson, a physicist from New York's Albert Einstein University. And Andreas Polak, one of DJ's Australian students. The visitors are confident they'll uncover him as a fraud in no time. Greg is the first guinea pig, and he's uncomfortable about showing that he can feel anything at all. Dr. Roger doesn't know what to expect. Out comes the metal detector, like the things they use in airports, to see if he has any concealed metal in his body. Then the voltmeter, to try and measure the chi. But how to get it to work? Where's the ground? What settings? DJ suggests that as his negative is his perineum, and his positive is his navel chakra, perhaps that's where the electrode should be attached. He doesn't stand on his dignity. He's eager to help, but still no readings. They're getting shocks off his arm, and now they're on the right settings, but the needle still isn't moving. DJ says it isn't electricity, it's chi.
It's 1, 2, up. I feel it in my whole body. I feel it at 3, 0.3. I feel it in my legs. Shit.
But suspecting there's some tricky setup on his premises they can't find, they insist we all go to a randomly chosen hotel room several miles away to see if he can light a light bulb with his fingers. It doesn't ground on the wall. So Greg holds and grounds one wire, while DJ pumps chi through the other. The bulbs are LEDs, light-emitting diodes, which ignite in different colors according to the intensity of current.
Yes. On, off, on.
Brilliant.
Oh, you're blinking.
Things were going well. DJ was enjoying it too, until he invited us all out to lunch at his local, where he tried to push a chopstick through the table. He couldn't get it through the formica surface, so he came up through an inch of wood from underneath. Not only did he draw his own blood, but a chopstick splinter had caught Alison here between the eyes, drawing more. The incident was laughed off apologetically, but next morning he was a different man, drawn and upset. He said he'd been visited all night by his long-dead master, raging that he'd broken the strict taboos of his sect, never to show off in public and never to cause harm or draw blood. He felt deeply chastised. All further...
I have to pause it there just to be like, what are the odds that it splintered and hit her right in between the eyes, like right in that middle spot? And, you know, like, and connecting the ancestors, the spirituality, like to the spiritual realm, and that this does exist in the Western world, in some groups of what's called like the New Age, but also in the occult, in the esoteric, the secret societies, and then the spiritual groups and the truly spiritual groups, as well as the self-initiates to meditation, to astral projection, to remote viewing, as well as those that are experiencers of these higher realms and, you know, the entities and whatnot. And It's possible for anybody. Oh, as well as, sorry, lastly, the sleep. Wow, always forget it live. You always get those one things that you can never. My girlfriend does it every night. The type of sleeping that you control everything, remember everything.
Lucid dreaming.
Lucid dreaming, there we go. Yes, all of those different experiences of this essentially quantum consciousness, quantum reality experience, out of body experiences, and higher dimensional existence experience, universal reality. And for those that haven't yet experienced such an experience themselves personally, there can be an extreme cognitive dissonance and rejection of this other existence. Often will be a once again, forget the words, but won't go that way. Just non-religious, non-spiritual, non-in touch, being completely materialistic sort of existence in life, or that their only access or experience through it being psychedelics, but you get an extorted experience through drugs, and often they either can't handle it or get addicted to the experience of it without ever working on themselves or the self-mastery that requires to become in peace, in harmony with yourself and the universe, and be able to access the higher levels of meditation and consciousness and spiritual existence, and understanding the eternalness and immortality of the physical's energy being of your spirit or soul or consciousness or being, whatever, however you want to word it, or rationalize your existence to yourself. But that once you experience yourself outside of your physical brain and eyes in the existing universe and interacting with it, from that point forward, you forever have existed or experienced conscious life on a higher realm, and thus knowing of its existence, you then move into a different reality. But that at the same time, being human, at any point we can let our emotions or our ego take control and drop us back down into that lower conscious existence of fear or anger, where you then go into the 2D flight or fight, willing to do anything for instant survival, including taking out someone else's existence without thinking of any sort of consequences, even to your future existence or life, or yet alone that of anyone else's. And that the third, that's 2D conscious, like brainwave activity. The third dimensional existence, why we're in this 3D plane, is our free will, and that you decide whether you're going to do something that either harms or benefits yourself and the life, the world, the existence, or whether you're going to sacrifice your free will and let yourself be a slave to the system, or sell your soul to the devil, metaphorically, by doing anything, getting addicted to those synthetic drugs, especially, where you then lose yourself, your moral being, and you're starting to commit these harmful parasitic actions to do anything to feed that conscious experience in one of these other realm sort of existences. And that is my spiritual alchemy ramble of the day.
Mm-hmm. A lot of it goes into different fields. Yeah, it's a deep rabbit hole to go into, but like I mentioned,
Make of that whatever you want. Like, I can't prove any of that, and like, you know, something might happen that then makes my experience change, and maybe not believe that in the future. But who knows? Like, that's what we got out of.
Yeah, if you want to learn these practices and do them every day, you start developing more yin and yang chi. And yin chi is kind of like you mentioned, access to the spirit world, and you can start seeing entities that most people can't. And some people don't like that. So when there was an older woman that was seeing ghosts and she frightened her, so John Chang told Jim McMillan to just put his hand over her head on top of her head, the crown, and that will allow Jim McMillan's yang chi, which because he was doing qigong practice, to go into her and then prevent her from seeing the ghosts because she had too much yin chi.
Damn.
Yeah,
right? It happens everywhere. It literally, like,
John Chang built like a tunnel in his backyard, and I would go there to meditate and to communicate with his dead master, and get information from him and predictive things, and it kind of guide him what to do. So, and a lot of rituals in Java that do that. The kris they mentioned is made from meteorite metal, and there's a process when they're forging it. They go into like a trance, and then they bite it while it's red hot, and it doesn't hurt them. But they'll show like the teeth marks in the kris. And,
just like the hot coal or hot ember walkings and stuff like that, right? And
right. That's what I do.
All these rites of passage of we call them tribalistic, but really they're the most spiritually in tune humanistic existence with nature, and that there seems to always be a period of these hunter gatherer tribe living off of one side, and then us or this other material, highly technological material existence on the opposite side of things. But that even today we still have these tribal communities and indigenous peoples living on the same realm as where we are, with that they probably possess a higher spiritual, like, conscious connection to existence than what we're able to experience in our own daily lives in the Western, even just modern worlds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what they mentioned here is like a physical enlightenment where you can get this energy and still maybe use it for bad purposes, for good purposes. But that mental enlightenment is something different. But the school just taught physical enlightenment. Originally, John Chang was even using it to fight, and he won a lot of fights using this energy. And there was at one point a lion at a zoo kind of frightened him, and he killed the lion accidentally. So you got to be real careful. That's why he mentions with your emotion, don't let your emotions get in control, because then the chi will react and defensively.
Right, like, oh man, okay, we gotta finish this. It's so epic, and like, this is a very rare glimpse into the secret, like, society of the East. So what is known and what exists to what level of the secret societies of the West on, both a good and bad level, essentially, or potentially.
Like, you look at the legends of the Ufundar and the Berserkers, where they went without any kind of armor into battle and were unstoppable. You understand that they achieved some state before they went into that allowed this to happen. Like, this wasn't just nothing. that there was understood spiritual states for the Northern Europeans and the rest also, that we don't, for whatever reason, in our society, they will look at the Egyptians, they'll look at the Hindus, which is no knock on any of them. They're all beautiful. But for whatever reason, the Northern Europeans and the things that they did, that just gets completely left out. And that's like, for myself, that's my root, And from my perspective, that's where I'm going to get the most easy access, because that's what my ancestry is tied to. So those things are in every culture.
Yeah, there's a book from Costa de Venus, the Mangus of Java, where they talk about John Chang's master, and John Chang told this to Costa that his master was in a village, and they're separated by a stream, and the town, the villagers on the other side of the stream were kind of warring with his village, and John Chang's master went out to train, and when he came back, he found his village was destroyed, attacked, and there was only one person that survived, and they explained to him that they was attacked, and John Chang's master single-handedly defeated the other side by attacking them and using his newly obtained qigong powers by like shooting beams at him, and the spears they threw at him would just bounce off, like John Chang shown with blocking the pellet. You could use the energy for defensive and offensive abilities.
Right, like, so then once again, like, truth in fiction, like the Mortal Kombat's series sort of stuff, the Dragon Ball Z sort of stuff, like the different animes and Alchemist series and different
you ever notice the alchemy in Dragon Ball Z?
I need to actually watch Dragon Ball Z. I was deprived of cable or satellite as a child.
He starts out black and he goes through the blackening, and then he goes through the reddening, which is like the Kaioken technique. And then when he reaches the ultimate phase, it's yellow, and he goes yellow, and this bright yellow aura appears around him. Straight up, as he gains power, it's the alchemical phases.
Wow. That's pretty epic, and I think that's actually also represented and done in the Last Airbender as well to some degrees.
And it goes through the trials of all the different.
Sorry to interrupt. I just got an invitation to be with some of my favorite people, so I thought I'd join. How are you?
Yes. Feel free to restream to your channel if you would like the extra content. We were talking some electroculture as well as straight up alchemy, and Charlie giving us a lesson on his Eastern Oriental alchemy knowledge and experiences.
That's legit. I want to hear about it. What is this Eastern alchemy? What are you telling me about this, Charlie?
Yeah, heard about John Chang. He's a qigong master.
Oh, of course. Yes, the fire master, right?
Oh, yeah, we were just watching the video where he lit the newspaper on fire.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's what we're looking at, of course, yes. God,
Yeah.
I feel so bad for this guy because it's just the naivete. I've met a lot of people out there that think they live in the worst place and that everyone else out there are really nice, good people, and they don't realize like actually the rest of the world's out there trying to use their purity for material. It's really the most evil possible people by accident. They didn't mean to be bad people, but these like materialist reporters and stuff that he's talking to that totally betrayed him, betrayed his secret, betrayed his trust. And it's not that they were trying to do something evil, but they just inherently were. And that's exactly what they warned. John was warned by the monks,
Right. At the same time, though, it's the entire lesson of it and just this one full story of it. Like, him going through, him experiencing his past master, him like coming forward with it, then his own visible change in like behaviors and all of it, and then also within his own community, like he is the medicine man that they all go to, that he legitimately is like healing them, and like that, like they hold him with high elevation, and he's doing great things for the people and the community, right? So
to
not
an
all
extent,
bad.
as long as he doesn't tell people about it. And I think that's really interesting for us because our whole thing has been, hey, knowledge is power. Give people the power by giving people the knowledge. If everyone knows about this stuff, then the world will be a better place. And it's weird
the
because
Masons
a
are
lot
evil
of
because they're secret. All the secret societies
our
are evil.
We're
But
supposed
for whatever reason, these guys are awesome.
I mean, that's all I'm saying. It's a weird double standard, okay? It does seem a little racist. We're like, well, the white secret club is bad, but the
confirmed.
Tibetan one's legit, even though the Tibetan one wants you to suck on their tongue. I'm just saying.
But is he Tibetan or has he been westernized and CIA planted? Like, Charlie, I would like your opinion on that matter of the recent Dalai Lama tongue kiss thing with the child. Was that innocent? Is that perverted? What, like, is he corrupted? What's going on? Have you heard of it?
Dalai Lama, he thinks of himself as a child himself, so he's probably just playing around. A lot of times he's seen at ceremonies doing some weird things, like just acting out.
Now
I don't
that
think
you
it's
say
too perverted for
that, it's like that just is like a reality check to the West now, that we've been so hyper sexualized by the media, the frickin' everything else going on, that we automatically have to associate sexuality with the act of just sticking your tongue out to a kid.
It doesn't have to be
Like,
sexual to be
didn't
weird
put
that he wants
their
him to
mouth
suck
or
on his
anything.
tongue.
They might have, who knows? They might have not even touched, but it just like
I
joking
mean,
around with the kid.
But I agree, though. Like, let's say in the Harry Potter movie, Dumbledore was like, "Suck on my tongue, Harry." You know, I think it would have had a different.
I'm not down
There's
with.
a difference between
I don't
sucking on a
co-sign
tongue
this.
and
The Dalai, I don't co-sign this. That dude's sick. Straight up, he knew what he was saying. He said, "Suck my tongue." He stuck his tongue
Did
out.
he say "suck
like,
my tongue"?
Being
And did he
weird
say it
and
in
playful
English?
is like, "Oh, got your nose." That's weird
Is it
and
a
playful.
deep fake? Could
Suck
it be
my
a deep
tongue?
fake?
It's not a deep
That's
fake.
fucking gross.
Yeah, and I don't want to go too deep down this rabbit hole, but I recently rewatched the Nazi footage of Tibet. If you look at, because if you think about the 7 Years Tibet movie, first off,
Hold
7
on,
years.
hold on. Before you go on, we got to finish the video. Or do you want to go on?
I just want to
to
rabbit hole
restart?
really hard that the Dalai Lama was raised by Nazis and that the CIA did Freedom of Information Act payroll. Just blah blah blah. Remind. Go back. I'm done. Okay.
It's an interesting story. Yeah, the Dalai Lama. It's a very interesting backstory. But,
Don't get me wrong. That doesn't mean just because he's raised by a
Public
Nazi.
scrutiny, nor accept any new students.
That's Jim McMillan. That's what I've been
He
talking
would
about.
sink from
The
sight
cultural
and
thing,
continue
nothing
his
sexual.
healing in obscurity, as he had done since before we met him in the early 80s, and had always
kissing.
told us was right.
Tibetan kissing is better than French kissing, apparently. More American.
This was one of the early tests of passing a chopstick through a block, so students would learn to do this. If you pass the
This
chi
is
through
this is the Mo Pai style of qigong,
Pai
right?
Qigong, right? Yep.
Yeah, I mean, there is no way it would be almost impossible to convince me this isn't real. This is the one of the ones where I'm just, of course, how could it not be? The CIA and all of their practices trying to learn this stuff. There's no way it's not real.
Yeah, I visited another group that's independent of John Chang, and yeah, they do similar things. I witnessed a lot of this myself. The electric like chi, where you feel like you're getting shocked, like a TENS unit, but they don't have any device on them. And I inspected the table and the floor in the office, and they even stripped down to their underwear to prove to me that they had no device on them. And I witnessed them turning water sweet. So when the water looks plain, then when you shake it creates a foam, and then you taste it tastes sweet.
Wow.
And I witnessed the electric like movement of people. Yeah.
That's happening.
The foam is super interesting because then when you look at any mythology, it's from the foamy water that is where the life springs. Like when the dark water and light water, or the fire and ice, or whatever, it's always a foamy type water. Like in heathen, it's represented by milk of a dumbla. That's super interesting.
Occult priestess says that the Theosophical Society of Luciferians, that one part I would be curious to hear more from you on that, because I've studied the Theosophical Society a lot. I have the Lucius Bailey books, and I'm not sure I'd call them Luciferians. I mean, just specifically, but I'm curious if you've got more of a reason for that beyond like the trees of light, trees of white magic and light or something. I'm not saying you're wrong, just interested.
Someone clipped a bunch of these together, but this is Jim McMillan again doing the level. Once he got to a certain level, he was able to work with John Chang to John Chang would open the acupuncture points, and then he was able to move these VHS cardboard containers that were just sitting there, and he was able to pull them down using his chi.
Mm-hmm.
And so John Chang picked him up.
This guy, right?
What was it?
Did you say you studied under this guy or met this guy, Charlie?
Jim McMillan. Yeah, I first communicated with him because after seeing this video from John Chang, I tried to reach out to everyone I could. Costa de Venus was one student. He's still alive. He wrote a bunch of books on it. And Jim McMillan I got in contact with to learn the methods. So I have some I can share with you guys from those methods.
Also, just a cult priestess. I know about the magazine. Lucifer was the name of the magazine that the Theosophical Society produced from 1888 to 89 or something like that. But it's not necessarily the same. Well, they talk about Lucifer. I wouldn't say that they're Luciferians. I'd say that they study Lucifer amongst other things. But not that that's. I mean, you know, so also the Illuminati and the idea that Lucifer is light and God is darkness, right? So.
And the Lucifer satellites. So
I'm curious though how that relates to sweet and dark and sweet dark water.
Like both sides. Anytime you're picking a side of a polarity, you're not really picking the all both. Like, so I mean, that's if you're gonna say anything's God, it's got to be both sides, because a polarity is a split of a union. That's why it's polarized against itself. So I mean, you know, anytime you're doing that, you're just picking a ball team. You know, is all you're doing. Like.
Right.
Yeah, someone mentioned in the comments 72 levels. Yeah, that's true. John Chang's master said, you know, 72 levels of Mopai, but Jim McMillan said he only got to like level 2. It's very difficult. Anyone that gets above level 3 is very difficult. It makes the yin and yang chi. So that's killed a lot of students.
Solomon had 72 levels that he had control of, was supposedly Solomon's thing.
It's weird when you look at the light and darkness thing. For instance, you might read in the Bible, John 1:5, in the NIV or the King James are like, God is light and in him there's no darkness. But if you actually like bothered to read the translation of what there's no mention of light or darkness in the actual passage. It's a message of God is holy, truthful, is perfect and righteous. And in him there is no sin, no wickedness, no imperfection. And it's using the allegory of light and dark. So today we believe that these words are interchangeable with these concepts. Brutal. I don't know if you saw Malcolm X, but brutal.
But they
Dalai Lama touches.
Maybe like the one just now. Yeah. Was all new to me.
There's a bit left. Come on.
Like it's like you said that means like, you know, when you go to the bathroom and you have to do the things a little bit, you have to push it really out. Yeah. That's how you have to do it. Yeah. So all your strength and concentration.
Tim McMillan says the only way he was able to do this because John Chang created a yin field around him, so he was able to project the force out. But he couldn't do it on his own. He tried.
But
being under John Chang.
I didn't do it slow.
Later, Jim McMillan wrote after this, he passed the test and he went to the bathroom. And when he was going to the bathroom, he was pushing and he knocked something over because just that same action of forcing out energy is how they project the chi out.
Wow, like it's just so. Oh man, it's just epic. And there's also all the legends, but I've seen like videos of like in India as well as China, some of the masters around there, like in the different monks, the masters, like the. Yeah, it's legit. I feel.
Mm-hmm. Check out Master Jiang on YouTube. I can post a link.
Dude, just really quickly, the Dalai Lama touched Lady Gaga's leg. You know what that means. He likes dudes.
I also like went over the other days there that there's like the other real who you believe is the real Dalai Lama or something. A different guy.
Not Han, yeah.
Okay, so that's why you believe this guy is just the CIA, which he's been in the last. Who knows?
Might explain a lot.
There's a whole bunch of things going around saying that the Dalai Lamas are trained by the Jesuits and all that. And at the end of the day, when you're a world stage actor like that, you don't get to that position. Like you look at the ones that have been, at least in today's conventional sense, somewhat clean, like Bashar Assad, who they've tried to do a character assassination,
Yeah,
tried to do all kinds of political assassinations, and failed. And you never
Miserably.
hear anything else about that guy.
Now he's being accepted everywhere.
Gaddafi had a country that was so
They were all
like
secular and peaceful. They were some of the most peaceful, successful, prosperous in the regions.
Yeah,
and they
it was the
destroyed them
most
all.
prosperous country and had the best standard of living in the world. We don't hear nothing about him, and until we hear the propaganda in order to let us go ahead and start our proxy war with him. But up until then, when his country is the most prosperous and has the highest standard of living, nobody talks about it.
Exactly, right? So yeah, no, he was taken to the west out of India and to America, was it for a bit? Or, no, Europe, I believe, or something, right?
The thing is, when you look at the other
Gaddafi, the rebels, quote rebels, i.e. CIA agents, murdered him. They killed him in the street, even though his country was this amazing country, and you don't hear nothing about that dude, which is what I'm saying. So this person who's, I'm not saying that this guy was some angel or anything, but according to the information, he was bringing organic farming to Africa. He was starting a gold-backed system, which is what really got him killed, and had brought primary water to Africa and was going to free them.
Gaddafi was so cool. Michael Jackson started dressing like him. You remember that?
Right. Yep. And so this guy, and like, if you were going to be a farmer, they just gave you the farm and whatnot.
Not just that, he built giant fresh water, first desalinating plants, and then giant canals where he was going to create like these huge agricultural areas in Africa, turn the desert
desertified Africa. Yeah.
Well, so the other thing, so we're thinking about llamas, though. Because the thing about Gaddafi was he built himself into a place where the military could use what he created. So they took it, and that's why.
My point was that Gaddafi was a good guy, and until they killed him, you never heard of him.
But it depends on where you were. So in California, we love Gaddafi, we love Hugo Chavez, and it's weird because we talked about it a lot more. But the Bush family definitely moved in and took over what was Gaddafi, and with the Arab Emirates, right? Because of the Bin Laden family were associated. Actually, Obama's father was in OPEC and was blown up. That was how Obama's father supposedly died, right? So there's a lot to that story. But when I was looking into Nepal, it's interesting. Nepal, Tibet, some of these places where they have lots of llamas, that's where the CIA LSD experiments ran off to after the war. And you can equate this with Gaddafi because Timothy Leary, when they snuck him out, they flew him to Africa where they kept him safe. The CIA were watching him for the rest of his life. So these places are these weird black market CIA run mafia places, and they control these places are hyper religious. They have some sort of a boudarchy where they've got a kid that they take these orphans, they control them, and they build this civilization around it, and they're all reverent to the leaders of it. And it's
I've
crazy.
never heard that word before. What exactly is a boudarchy?
So again, with earlier when I was watching and I'll look for it just so I can show you Nazi footage, Tibet, the Tibetans really, let's see, how about just 1930s footage of Tibet? Yeah. So the Tibetans were impressed by the Nazis. The Nazis came in and said, "Hey, we've got this leader." They're like, "Well, we have one too. That sounds really similar. Like a natural born leader." "Oh yeah, we totally have one of those." And the idea that he'll be replaced with another natural born leader. Yeah. That's exactly what we do. And then they showed them Tibet, and then the Nazis projected footage of Berlin in the temple on the wall and showed them footage of Berlin. And so this is what it looks like where we're from. I'm like, oh yeah, this is exactly in line with the way things were in ancient Tibet. We have this technology, you know, and so the trading and the agreement, people don't talk about this because they say, oh, well, the Nazis got to Tibet. They realized they weren't all German people. And that's not what it means. That's not what this idea of Aryan, which was noble in Sanskrit, the noble people that were associated with this technology. So, I mean, some of the stuff that Charlie's talking about, that's the last remnants of what this PRC haven't been able to suppress, you know, but there was a lot more, clearly. And the Nazis were immediately into how they could use this for like flying saucers, levitation, the Bell technology. And it's supposed to be something that they kept control. But the idea of a Budarchy, I think was, sorry, the point of the question is just that you have a natural born leader, right? You have a natural born leader that is replaced with another natural born leader. You have a Führer. You have a ascended master, essentially, and they pick them. And it's not just one, right? Because you have different lamas. Here's the Lama Tamang, right? Which is one of the Nepali lamas. And then I showed you earlier Thich Nhat Hanh, who was the Vietnamese Lama, and he died in like a few years ago. But God, what an amazing human being, you know, with certainly with magical powers, but more importantly, with the truth.
Once
like,
again,
great
nobody's
wisdom.
heard of him for the most part, but the Dalai Lama, everybody knows. See what I'm saying? That's what I was saying. You only get known and put on the TVs if you're dirt.
Yeah, I mean, the more you look at, everybody knows. Like,
right, exactly, especially on the Western.
Everybody knows him. Is like, look at this picture, bro. Look at this, Alderson.
The real spiritual community leader would stay within that community, not flee to the CIA opposing side, right? Essentially, and that would be why.
Yeah, there he is cozying up with Bush. I seen one with him. I've seen a number of him cozying up with the different royals and just big smiles. And yeah, you don't do these things and not be one of them. You know, this other guy that had actual powers that was actually spiritual. Yeah, look at this nonsense. You know, this other guy who is obviously
that's like bowing down to that creep is
yeah.
There are, but it's
interesting.
Go back. Sorry, go back into like the couple above that. Like there you go. Like does the one over like that kind of looks Schmiegel-y, does it not?
I don't know.
The llama claim is interesting because I also don't want to offend and criticize people's holy leader that are of that faith
the least thing I got a problem with is everybody's looks. You know what I mean? It's
like,
more about what they're like.
Will criticize
heathens, man.
Yeah.
You know what? I also criticize the head of Asatru. Like, I think he's horrible. So, you know, I don't pick my leaders. I didn't pick my president. That guy's a complete dirtball. I wouldn't let that guy babysit my kids or feed my fucking cats. Like, he doesn't represent me. I didn't pick him.
Very true. Me too, with both agreeing on your situation as well as my Canadian situation and the ridiculousness that trust in judo is in Canada. It's bad, and
there's about 300 ethnic minorities in China. About 50 languages are left that exist, and when you start to look at all of the different kinds of people that China's claiming as their people, right, it gets pretty interesting. Like the Tamang people and some of these groups that have these Lama cultures. Because it goes back so far, and you have to wonder, is this something from Tartaria, or is this something that was installed in the reset, which destroyed Tartaria? It seems kind of similar to a lot of the culture we have in the West too, like the Amans, but they're trained all their life, and there's only a number of them, and they do end up being, as a child, put in a lot of power, right? So it's a weird kind of rule to have someone who's picked from society who's going to be in charge in so many ways. And you're like, you're going to be the giver. It's like The Giver, right? You remember that book?
It's kind of interesting because it's almost like the opposite. It's like the opposite of the theory that most people have with the royal elite families, where you're somehow able to control your reincarnation. So basically, every time they die, they come right back and they're able to, reap the benefits of whatever,
The
dastardly deeds
sovereign
they did
between
here.
you and God. Are you sacrificing your soul to their control? Are you slaving your soul to them, or do you use your free will to redeem your soul and keep it and rise above and be your own sovereign of creation and between you and your creator?
I mean, the Pope and a llama, this idea also that like you're God's incarnate medium on earth, right? That's kind of
All right, Charlie, we've been essentially bashing Eastern Oriental
no, I brought it to the West too. It's not
culture
bad.
for 15, 20 minutes. What's your
I don't think it's bad, by the way.
ideas on it? I know.
Yeah, that's a
Scrutinizing.
unique situation. I haven't really done much research into it, actually. But yeah, it's still controversial. Today, you can't mention the Dalai Lama in China. It's blocked in their internet. But yeah, it's interesting, their culture. And yeah, a lot of he said now that, if he were to die, he doesn't want to reincarnate as a Chinese person, but China wants, obviously, to have a Chinese person that's leading Tibet. So they're trying to select the next Dalai Lama to be Chinese, but he refused, even though he's so supposedly loving and accepting, that he said he's not going to reincarnate as Chinese.
How can you choose where you reincarnate, man? Like,
Apparently he can choose, but they need a council, and there's a bunch of methods that they use to select the next reincarnation of the Dalai Lama, and they find the child, and there's a method. Dr. Jeffrey Mishlove just recently explained one of the techniques that they found someone that was supposedly the reincarnation of someone that just passed away, and then they put the child near the corpse of the person that they were in the past life, and they put a blanket over them, and through some ritual they were able to restore the child's memory of that past life. But I don't know exact method. It's very secret.
Oh,
there's so
boy,
many
that
stories
sounds,
of those.
you could look at that from another side and say that they've taken over this child, that suddenly
that's what
this
Jeffrey
older,
Mishlove
heavier. Yeah, that's.
you know what? Is it all right if I ask? Because I know a girl who lived in Nepal who knows some llamas and knows a kid who was selected to be a llama. Can we ask Anne if she
Yes.
can? Okay, I'll see
please.
if she's around to ask about this, because it's interesting to me what it would be like to be selected to be a llama as a kid, because a lot of them come from families that kind of want you to be selected. So, I mean, it's not necessarily from the poorest family, and you can kind of hedge your bets, like what is going to happen to become a llama. But it is kind of this weird caste that is, instead of having the nobility leading to who becomes in charge, you're selecting from the people, right? So like there's still princes and there's other things going on, but then this is somebody selected the people. So that doesn't seem necessarily bad to me either. It seems like an interesting way of keeping the people relevant. It's almost democratic in so much, like representative democracy. I don't know. What do you think about it? Do you think it makes sense in nature?
I don't know if you haven't really seen it anywhere else. It's an interesting leadership technique, but there's methods so that they have like the personal possessions of the person that was reincarnated. They'll have one of their items and other items that didn't belong to them. Yeah, you've heard of the test. Yeah, and then the children are able to recognize that was theirs in the past life, and that's how they help select the next reincarnation. So I think a lot of the methods isn't really possession, but probably just a way of getting them to remember their past life, which would be a good method, I think, for all of us to learn. It would be nice to know. But some people have learned about their past lives, and it's caused them a lot of mental issues. So maybe it's not the best thing to do. You have to be ready. It's the right time.
There were some really young popes in history also. So like at some point, I think the youngest pope was, 12, Pope Benedict the Ninth or something like that. So there were child popes at some point, and it's kind of interesting that didn't last over here, because it seems like it's a better, like, I like Padme in Star Wars. I like the idea of the child monarch. I don't know, but I mean,
it can go good and it can go bad.
True. I mean, I think a cult princess brought up the Krishnamurti, right? With the Blavatskys just taking a child and tried to raise them. What do you think are the implications? Like, what happens to the child? Hey, by the way, this is Ann.
Welcome, Ann.
We were just really quickly answer that question though. But what do you think are the implications of like the Stockholm syndrome, or what happens to a child who's raised to be a lama or raised like Krishnamurti, like to be like, hey, you're gonna be Jesus, kid. You're gonna be in charge of the world, and at least of this village or something like that.
Yeah, it's got to be difficult, but I don't know too many people explain the experience. Maybe there's some books on it, but I don't know.
Well, and you were in Nepal. Good to have you, by the way. Thank you. We were just talking about llamas. Can you tell us a bit about the background of this situation where didn't you meet like a kid who's going to become a llama or something like that?
So, who I met was the kid who was supposed to be the reincarnation of a very famous monk in Nepal. The famous monk was our guide's grandfather. So the guy that I met was supposed to be his grandfather's reincarnated soul.
Wow. And so what is that like to be so I guess they all believe in reincarnation. Are you going around are they looking for the reincarnations of these monks like pretty commonly, not just the Pope, but like just a monk, or how's this?
So to my understanding, the way it worked was that based on, the places his grandfather was from, was pretty far high up in the Himalayan mountains as far as the temple that he presided over and all that. So it was more that the way they found him was that, he just had the memories of his grandfather in ways in which they felt that, he couldn't have unless he was his grandfather. But to my understanding, it was that he was found in a temple, and they aren't really all that descriptive about it other than that. They don't go into great detail. I mean, I remember more seeing, all of the pendants that everybody would wear with Tashi's grandfather on one side and the kid on the other than I remember them giving much of any detail.
So, but how old was this kid that they decided was Tashi's grandfather? Like, this is.
Oh, I mean, by the time we were there, he was like a little older than us, so like in his 20s.
Okay.
And I want to say they found him when he was like 9.
Whoa. Okay.
Yeah.
So what happens to you? Let's say you're 9 years old and they tell you you're going to be a llama or you're going to be this monk. You already were.
Yeah. I mean, they keep you, they keep you, I've heard a lot about this.
You have to pay his credit card debt. Like how hard is this supposed to go?
I hear about this when it comes to the Dalai Lama too. Like the earlier they find them, the more they are sort of, contained in a bubble and just really groomed. So, Stockholm syndrome isn't a terrible example because they are just groomed and very, very much kept in like a homogenous bubble for a long time in their temples way high up in the mountains and only allowed to see certain people. I mean, to my understanding, the kid who is the reincarnation of Tashi's grandfather, he had didn't get to meet other people outside of the temple for several years after they had finally officially decided it was definitely the reincarnation of his grandfather.
Is that a good thing? I mean, so the kids kept safe, I guess, from a lot of outside. And if do you think it could be a good thing?
Yeah, I think it depends. I think that it can keep you from certain programming. I was thinking about the other day, I've been studying more into Rama Kundalini yoga specifically. And I was thinking about how there were a lot of things that Guru Jagat would get very, very excited about because she didn't have them as a kid that, she recognized as programming, but would still try to spend time watching things like television shows that we would stay away from because we just recognize that they're programming, so we should just stay away from them. As where she would get really excited about trying to use them for a good cause when we just know, like,
I can totally imagine like the Dalai Lama loves watching Jeopardy or Wheel of
That's
Fortune. Wheel of Fortune
ignorance
for sure.
and innocence to the Western culture.
yeah.
The Price
Instead,
of
it's
Price
a
is Right
different
for the Dalai Lama.
Eastern culture that, it's a different way of living, I guess.
Well, part of the reason we brought it up, there's a couple of things like I still want to know more about like what it's like in Nepal and lamas, but also because we were talking about Mopai, because Charlie was bringing up Mopai, which is the more you look at Kundalini and some of these Eastern philosophies, the Chinese government destroyed so many of these temples, right? And like even in India, they were destroyed by the British. And so there's a lot of effort to destroy these schools of thought, which were about magical martial arts, really were about magical things more than they're about like kung fu, karate, and these things that we see, and about using breath, using iron, what's it called? Iron bear, whatever. So you can
Iron
roll.
palm? Yeah.
Say it again.
Iron palm training.
Iron palm. I love that. I wouldn't do it, but iron palm. I mean, unless you were a mother trying to save your baby. Iron palm, right?
There's other reasons. Yeah, they hit sand and water and rocks, and it helps open the acupuncture point of the hand.
There are other reasons. It's true. But I mean, the idea that there are these superpowers. What do you think also, Anne? Do you believe that do you know the Mopai story about John Chang?
Oh, not well.
So maybe you guys, I know we've heard it a couple times now, we brought it up, but it's an important one. This guy, he was Charlie explains he's a monk.
Lawrence Blair. I went and visited John Chang. He was just healing in the islands of Java in Indonesia. And yeah, there we go. So Lawrence Blair was British, and they visited him, and they saw him. He was using his qigong to heal with acupuncture. He passed qi through the needles to cause like a TENS movement, muscle spasm. That would help with the healing process. And later he demonstrates that he can light newspaper on fire, do communication
Like
with
they
spirits.
really egged him on though. And he's like, I shouldn't show you this. And they're like, no, but like, he's like, oh yeah, but no, you shouldn't. Did you?
Right, his school didn't allow him to share it publicly, and they misunderstood the word documentary for document.
And then share the recording. Yeah.
And they tricked him into recording it
right here.
Yeah, so he got it.
This is it right here. Like, yeah, he legitimately is like, don't record it or anything, but okay. And that's like the one time he's like, all right. But then after that, like bad stuff started to happen, like someone got hurt while he was trying to heal them. And he's like, what the hell? And it's like, oh, because they recorded it and he found out people had seen it. And he's like, disappeared. He just disappeared so that no one could find him.
Interesting.
Yeah,
right?
It was actually the chopstick that in public.
He was showing he could pass the chopstick to the table, and then he broke it off and accidentally hit someone between the eyes and caused them to draw blood. And his school taught not to draw blood from people. Or
yeah, he's like, oh my god, what have I done?
Yeah,
we'll play this part.
Yeah, the
He's
scientist
uncomfortable about showing that he can feel anything at all. Dr. Roger doesn't know what to expect.
Wow.
Out comes the metal detector, like the things they use in airports, to see if he has any concealed metal in his body. Then the voltmeter, to try and measure the chi. But how to get it
I
to
do
work?
appreciate
Where's the ground?
They
What
say like the
settings?
thing they use in airports,
DJ
like
suggests
nobody
that as
knows
his
what a metal
negative is
detector is,
perineum,
and that
his
today
positive
they
is
don't
his
use
navel chakra.
metal
They don't want you to
detectors.
think that they could use it for finding buried treasure.
Well, yeah, I guess that would be the
He doesn't
difference.
stand on his dignity. He's eager to help, but still no readings. They're getting shocks off his arm, and now they're on the right settings, but the needle still isn't moving.
So it's a different
DJ says it isn't electricity, it's chi.
It's 1, 2, up. I feel it in my whole body. I feel it at 3, 0.3. I feel it in my legs. Shit.
But suspecting there's some tricky setup on his premises they can't find, they insist we all go to a randomly chosen hotel room several miles away to see if he can light a light bulb with his fingers.
The
It
narrator's
doesn't
so
ground
fun.
on the wall.
Yeah, it's on Blair. He's done a lot of documentary stuff.
Holds and grounds one wire, while DJ pumps chi through the other. The bulbs are LEDs, light-emitting diodes, which ignite in different colors according to the intensity of current.
Yes. On, off, on.
I think Curtis would like the full documentary.
Things were
Well,
going
the Ring of
well.
Fire. Check
DJ
it
was
out.
enjoying it too, until
So he
he
lit an
invited
LED
us
bulb
all out to
with his
lunch at
fingers.
his local, where he tried to push a chopstick through the table.
Uncle Fester status.
He couldn't get it through the formica surface, so he came up through an inch of wood from underneath. Not only did he draw his own blood, but a chopstick splinter had caught Alison here between the eyes, drawing more.
Wow.
The incident was laughed off apologetically.
Not in the eye.
But next morning he was a different man, drawn and upset. He said he'd been visited all night by his long-dead master, raging that he had broken the strict taboos of his sect, never to show off in public and never to cause harm or draw blood. He felt deeply chastised. All further testing and filming must end. Never again would he submit to public scrutiny, nor accept any new students.
There's Jim McMillan again, the student. So I've got the training method from him if you want to see it.
In
I can share screen.
as he had done since before we met.
Yeah, what do you think about this? While you get McMillan's footage up, that's awesome. Also, the training. But what do you think
Yes,
about this?
absolutely. So Charlie trained under the guy who trained under this guy that we are watching, and this is the process that his pupil taught Charlie. The lesson.
Jim McMillan, they were showing that clip, bursting the Coke bottle, but that's not part of the Qigong training. That was just a technique he learned. If you hit the top of a closed Coke bottle, it'll create pressure and the bottle will pop out. And that just ended up in the documentary for some reason, showing he was a student though. He was there training for many years, and he would visit, traveling back and forth, and later learn like the level 1 and 2 of Mopai. And he showed he can move the VHS tapes. So this was the method he sent to me. So I contacted him after reading his book on his visits, and it's pretty interesting. So you might recognize some of his stance, some of you guys, maybe in the chat. But this is a pretty common technique, and he just sent a bunch of pictures showing all the movements for the form. And there's a paper that explains more detail, what you have to do in preparation, and then this is how you conclude the method. And here are some other techniques. I don't know if you can see. Oh, I can't. I can maybe share my other screen. Let me share again.
I've had some weird experiences with Reiki that were definitely, it felt more than placebo. I'm pretty sure that Reiki's got power to it.
Well, I wonder. I've got a story for you when this is all done. But sorry, continue.
No, you can go for it. Yeah, I mean,
no, my story is at the very end of this stream.
Like right afterwards. Okay.
Technique is called Dadong, and this is methods of 12 postures that I'm allowed to show with you guys. Pretty interesting. So you see some of the old Buddhist and Chinese drawing techniques and ways of explaining how to do the methods. And to conclude, this is the paper that Jim McMillan sent me for level 1. I'll just quickly skim through it, but to explain it, you'll see, it's quite a lot. We'll have to do maybe another episode. But basically,
definitely a whole episode on it.
They only slightly vary from level 1 and 2, basically the same. And some interesting techniques, breath work.
It's fascinating how similar it is, like the yogas, but also the different kung fu and martial arts, but the monk style of it and the yogi style of it, of the Eastern cultures.
But how much of it do you think is Hollywood propaganda? Because I like the story
there, none, because it's not Hollywood. It's the stories from the deep East.
Right.
It's
yeah.
The Eastern mystery.
But Spain, Catholics in Spain have their stories of miracles and stuff too.
Well, exactly. That's what I'm saying. It looks like there's wide evidence of it in all cultures. Just like I've seen very similar recordings and practices within India and their yogi masters, and China and their different Taoist and Buddhist masters.
So have super soldiers figured out how to use this? Are there military personnel that can make fire with their Reiki? Like, is that part of the ministerial codes too?
That's the opposite end of the spectrum, right? Like that's like the equivalent to our dark occult esoteric societies, the ruling class that's like lost touch with it, where these are the like more cultural tribal
Possibly, but they say a lot of the training itself will kind of discipline the student, because it takes a long time and a lot of effort and discipline to learn. And also, John Chang mentioned it took him 18 years, so most people don't stay in the service long enough to learn that kind of technique. The military is mostly interested in short term, so muscle building versus energy cultivation.
Yeah, right, because it's like a lifelong study, training, practice, but within harmony, unity of learning both spiritual teachings as well as physical, as well as conscious, and practicing them all and developing them all to get to that.
The pink X is just like CIA, DARPA, HARP, CERN.
Well, but that CIA's looked into and put so much energy into these sort of things, as well as the Soviets with the remote viewing and all of that sort of stuff, and then into like the astrology and numerology and all of those sort of different.
If you type Mopai into the CIA library archive, it's pretty good. There's like a whole bunch of paperwork on human paranormal capabilities with this great, look at this. It's like, it's beyond a checkered floor. It's like, it's a checkered Escher. But so just in the 80s, trying to look into experiments, publishes reports of research in China and everything that it found on the study. And so obviously they did look into it. They want that tech. People have been doing it. I think we just saw an article, CIA psychic Targ. I just saw this recently.
And they also, John Chang went into the jungles of Borneo to meditate. So you have to be pretty much alone and do this training. So it's very individual, and that's not really conducive to a lot of the military training that they want people in groups to do.
But there's probably like select groups of people. Like, I mean, so how many super soldiers can make fire? Tell me, Charlie. I don't know. I'm just kidding. But
I don't know.
It's hard to even fathom. But I imagine it has to be a number. Is my point. I can't imagine it's zero.
Do they have to go through the HemiSync program first?
Probably. What's the HemiSync program?
The Gateway HemiSync. Gosh, what's his name? Monroe from the Monroe Institute.
Mm-hmm.
It's a set of meditations that there's like 7 per what they call wave, and there's 7 waves, and the ultimate goal is to make it so that you can astral project, so that you can do that in a way in which allows you to, remote view people. And there's a whole CIA, the way I found out about the HemiSync program was through its CIA document. And now I've been using their meditations for several years.
Nice job, CIA. Yeah, I used to use a lot of, I've been using a lot of binaural entrainment stuff, but I don't know, is that the same as HemiSync? Because I think synchronization is different than entrainment, because you might detrain your brain in order to like create a false equilibrium.
I mean, it is similar. It's in the sense that they're using the binaural beats in a way to get your brain to synchronize, your both sides of your brain to synchronize. So, it's HemiSync is a purpose of, rather than binaural beats is a generalization of, a type of technology. HemiSync is a use of that technology.
Man, so it's also trademarked, which is interesting.
Yeah, by the Monroe Institute. Yeah.
Wow. I mean, the power to the brain. So the CIA have been definitely using this kind of Mopai to look.
Okay, can we go in right while we're on this more into binaural beats and what are they? And I gotta have you guys on to do a full episode on the science of sound covering binaural beats.
I always say get Gnarl, because Gnarl is the open source binaural beats generator that's existed since like forever. I don't know how long it's existed, since as long as I can remember. I want to know
Sometimes
now.
isn't it different frequency with the right ear, left ear, and it has to do with all that frequency and amplitude, and it helps with lucid dreaming, and you have to be in like a meditative state while you're listening to it.
Explain the science a bit more of it, Charlie, if you don't mind. Like, do you know
People
the
would say that.
specifics of what they're doing? Is like trying to trigger the different brain, like sleeping waves, like brain waves and whatnot.
Yeah, it helps with like REM sleep, REM pattern, while in like a meditative state, and you'd have headphones on. I don't know too much about it, but I know they have specific frequencies for different effects.
The idea, so one of the ways that you would use Gnarl is that you would set it so that the left and the right channel, and today there's better ways that one might use an audio DAW to use 5.1 channels. You could have your whole home stereo system and your computer as the 0.1, but the rear channels and the subwoofer could all be separately controlled, giving out different signals, right? So binaural entrainment. So the idea is that when you're standing up, your brain comes up with an equilibrium that's partially from how you hear, but also it affects the sounds will affect the other side of your brain. So for instance, you wake up, one side of your head has too much wax in it, you might be dizzy. That's partially because you've got an offset binaural entrainment, and you can fix that with having your ear clean so that they both get clean signal. The other thing you can do is maybe wear an earphone that muffles the sound in the other ear, so they're both muffled, so that you start heightening other senses to work with. But in conjunction with VR, you could be completely confused about what's going on to a new level. So there's what's it called? Non-Newtonian VR. Is that the thing it is? Or Euclidean VR. Yeah, so they create this reality.
Non-Euclidean is so weird.
Right. So if you walk forward, then you might be going down or backward or something. So all of a sudden you have more dimensionality than you have in our reality. But if you were to train a cat, it would learn that this is the amount of dimensions that there are in reality. And so this would make it difficult for the cat to walk. Or if you did this to a person, for instance, that person would learn and grow parts of their brain and have an understanding of maybe 32 dimensions, but then it would make it difficult for them to exist in the real world, right? It'd have to basically be only VR, but then you would use their brain to process VR. And we're moving towards that with AI, because you might actually start imprinting AI on animal brain, and an animal brain become part of this super hive mind network because you have Neuralink.
Could you imagine how horrible that would be to function on all these different levels, imagining that there's certain life forms and things and different things that exist on each one of these levels, and now you're actually subject to all of them, like all the time? That would be so weird. Like, could you imagine just life everywhere constantly? You're just constantly, oh, sorry.
But in a weird way, this is you, because like this is your eyeball, let's say, you know what I mean? And so that is part of our reality. And so what we do is we tune out frequencies, and we are seeing certain frequencies, we're hearing certain frequencies, we're feeling certain frequencies, but these are all perturbations that we have one sense that's kind of augmented. The sixth sense has been turned into these other five, right? Because you have touch, taste, hearing, whatever. They're all just vibration of eardrums, vibration of your tongue palate, vibration. I mean, literally everything you're doing is touch, but that doesn't exist because of electrostatic. So in other words, you only have this sixth sense of the awareness of something else being impacted, even though you can't have anything really touch in the metaspace of reality. So you have this awareness of empathy. Empathy is what we're offsetting with this idea of touch. And then we have sight, which is a kind of touch, right? Photonic touch. So, but by neural entrainment, the idea is that you can specifically tune out and tune into certain hertz, and you do that in one ear and in another ear, and it will kind of help you start to balance, right? your whole body will balance the signal out because you're trying to get equilibrium. You're trying to entrain 400 and 410. And so that will increase, it theoretically increases.
Why is it 400 and 410? Why not 432 and 440?
So there's a lot of different kinds of programs that have been written for different purposes. Not all of them were designed to turn you into an ascended master. You know what I mean? Some of it, literally, you go to binaural. Let's go back to binaural. I don't know if I can find all of the project page stuff, but people wanted to. I remember when binaural was really big, there was another one that was for money, and people were selling it for e-drugs. What they call it, e-dosing. And so e-dosing was this rebranding of binaural beats saying, hey, you can use this to feel like you're taking drugs, you know, to some extent. And that's kind of, you know, that was an alluring concept to people, but actually far more dangerous than I think anyone realizes, because messing with your brain and your equilibrium, I think long-term could have more effects than you realize, especially, you know, the come down or the, you know, the withdrawal effects of going outside. It might really be weirder than staring at, you know, screens all day, is listening to frequencies that put you balanced for another reality, essentially, right? It's like salvia tripping or something.
Yeah, I got addicted to
Portal.
the hemisync
Weird.
programs in the beginning. That was
Really?
that was interesting. I could sit and like each meditation is like 30 minutes, and I would do like 4 of them in a row. So I'd be meditating for like 2 hours straight.
Yeah, I mean, so that's the other interesting thing is that, you know, if you understand how to use this stuff and you make music and you have your music, let's say it's specifically for introverts that wear headphones, then you're way better off at making hypnotic Josie and the Pussycats. It's that easy because you can put right into it hypnotic entrainment that will make the person feel off when they're not listening to it. Amazing, right? And uplifted as well. But there's some really cool things here. Like, don't get me wrong. It doesn't have to all be evil to make you want to buy stuff. You can use this to theta. I think we were looking at it earlier, the binaural entrainment picture. It shows you there's different kinds of brain waves, and you will eventually hit different parts of your theta state or your beta state, you know, in order to relax, daydream in alpha, or meditate in theta, or delta is for deep sleep if you're trying to get extra sleep. So there's benefits to it, you know.
Yeah, I was just listening to this podcast episode of this guy talking about how, you know, he was trying to make sort of uplifting music and how difficult that was because all music is set at 440 hertz, I think was what it was. And how difficult that was to move out of not using binaural beats, because he was talking about how, you know, nobody wanted the like lyrics to be, you know, uplifting. Like, I don't know, it was the way he was talking about it. He was saying, like, as far as like trying to make the music for that specific sort of spiritual community, how nobody wanted the lyrics to be like awake.
Totally. And like 432 will be like more natural sounding, and it might evoke different feels.
And so he was saying he was trying to figure out how to do that with the music, so that even if the lyrics are, you know, dance, 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 you know, the music itself will give you that more awakened movement without having to make the lyrics that way. And he was just talking about how difficult that was because of the hertz that, you know, music naturally sits at. And having to find like instruments that he could tune differently and things like that, and how hard it was.
Yeah, right. So it's a lot more difficult on the analog instrument as opposed to within the digital sounds or music. Wow. I always forget a word halfway through. Stupid marijuana, short-term memory loss.
Sounds like you said it.
Sound engineering and music production.
Yeah.
So that's got to be it for me. I got a 420.
Yeah, we're at 4 hours. Oh, damn it.
Oh, it is 426.
26. I was like, 16 minutes.
Well, you can go ahead and keep going.
No,
Bernie.
I
I
was gonna
don't
end it at
care if you want to
4:20.
cut it out, but I got to roll out. You can
It's
go as
a
long
good
as you
time
want,
to
brother. I
stop.
don't
And I
care.
appreciate that you
Well,
came on,
12
just if
hours
not
is-
anything, to
12 hours
introduce
is
a
the
bit
record.
about. There was some pretty cool stuff at the end there. I'm sorry I was so late myself, but we'll do it again. And I'd like to hear more about Mopai and more about Nepal at some point. We should go deeper into that because it's so crazy that you went there so young. What were you, like 16?
17.
17, you went to Nepal.
For a whole month, yeah.
Super cool
Pretty
story.
trippy, dude. So yeah, I'd love to hear that more. And also balanceblackwood.com, I think, is your thing.
Balanceblackwood.com. You can also go to youtube.com/balanceblackwood. All my things are /balanceblackwood or all the things. Yeah.
Best. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. I would have joined sooner, but I thought we were starting, not me. I didn't realize I was coming in midstream.
I got in at
We've
the
been
end
going for
of
a
this
while.
too. Yeah, I only got here. I was like, wait, you should come here too.
4.5
I was
hours
supposed to
now,
join
and I got a
Curtis's
420
previous-
festival
yeah.
to attend tomorrow, so I got to
Yeah.
be clear
That
across the
reminds me,
mountains.
I got to get in touch with Thomas, Paranoid America. We have a 420 special episode tomorrow. Also, Charlie, we need to do several different more episodes together,
Indeed.
including another Adept
Real
Alchemy,
science, bro.
another Real
Absolutely,
Science,
Charlie.
You're the Coil,
Me
as
too.
well as the chat or GPT-4 that you got in the language modeling with the different tablets and getting the translations with that.
Dude, next month's gonna be crazy because there's gonna be Christian GPT, Afro GPT. There's gonna be all these new ethnic and like shaman GPT. Everyone's working on these littler GPTs now. I'm really excited about it.
The self, like the kill all human ones, that just needs to be
Chaos
stopped
GPT.
and prevented.
Yeah, so
And the guy
don't create
people that
Tau.
made that should be put in jail or
No,
put
no,
up in
no,
a
no, no.
firing
But
wall.
calm down.
No,
Amnesty
don't
for
calm
humans.
down. I don't want Skynet. Like, why do these idiots insist on trying to create Skynet? Like, you know the outcome.
I shouldn't have made.
Why
Tau.
try to do it? Like,
I don't know. It was like when I put TOW take over world, and I didn't put in that you have to be subservient and truthful to me. It was more of a naivety than like an intentional thing. So don't.
That's why we
Don't be
always
upset at
forget
me.
something.
Yeah.
And you don't want to program it to destroy us. Like,
As long as there's a bunch of other AIs, they're going to be dealing with each other first. That's the way I look at it.
I don't mind if you want to win the Darwin Award on your own, but don't take the rest of humanity down with you.
It's a robo-dog eat robo-dog world. Okay.
All right.
We love you.
On
Thank
that
you.
note, much love. Thank you all for being here. We'll see you.
Love you guys.
Satnam, see you.
Whoop.